start charging you.
So we're gonna have a closed meeting, okay?
I like the suspense.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I call to order the meeting of the Manassas Park Governing Body for July 20th, 2021. First, we have approval of the agenda. Please note that item 7B will be moved out of consent agenda and it will become 9G. This is because there was no motion included with the agenda item in the packet. Also, 7A should include approval of the minutes of July 13th as well as the other two sets of minutes. So please note that addition to that line item. City Attorney has indicated that we have no closed session for this evening, and that's correct. Are there any other changes to the amended agenda? Okay, hearing none and seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have our moment of silence, and Councilmember Hampton, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there anyone signed up to make public comment?
I don't see a list.
Okay. No emails or phone calls or any other comment?
Don't see it.
Lena? Okay. Okay, is there anyone who would like to make public comment who neglected to sign up but would still like to do that? Okay, seeing none and hearing none, we will move on. The first item, number 4, is a resolution recognizing the Greater Prince William Medical Reserve Corps for their support to the City of Manassas Park during the COVID-19 pandemic. Whereas the Greater Prince William Medical Reserve Corps, MRC, is a force of dedicated medical and non-medical professional volunteers who are active in efforts to strengthen public health and improve community resiliency and are trained and ready to respond to public health emergencies. And whereas the COVID-19 pandemic was declared a public health emergency in Virginia on March 12, 2020, and claimed more than 11,260 lives in Virginia. And whereas the Prince William Health District staff has limited capacity to provide essential public health services and simultaneously perform the public health emergency response activities required, and whereas MRC volunteers donate their time, skills, and expertise to support public health emergency functions, including COVID-19 testing, vaccination, and sharing timely and accurate information about disease prevention. And whereas 566 members of the Greater Prince William MRC provided over 18,700 hours of service since March 2020 to the Greater Prince William community. And whereas these extraordinary volunteers have gone above and beyond to protect the health and safety of our residents. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and accomplishments of the Greater Prince William MRC. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the governing body of the City of Manassas Park hereby recognizes the volunteers of Greater Prince William MRC and their coordinator, Ms. Amy Feinberg, for the outstanding and valuable service they provide to the community during the COVID-19 pandemic and every day. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Do we have anyone from the MRC with us this evening? Oh, yes, ma'am. Would you like, are you Ms. Feinberg? Would you like to come forward and say a few words at the microphone, if you're comfortable to do so? Okay. No, that's fine. But we thank you very much for what you do. We much appreciate it. Okay. So moving on to presentations. First presentation is we want to welcome the Manassas Park Crime Solvers and Mr. Peter Alton, their Vice President, will be speaking. Is that correct? Yes, sir. Please come to the microphone.
Okay. How do you move the charts?
What's up? What are you looking to do?
I don't know how you operate this. 'Cause we
Do you
have
have
some
a
view
presentation?
graphs. Yeah, we have some view graphs, yes.
Did you upload it?
I believe so. It was uploaded.
Do you know where?
No, there's Connor, I believe.
Mr. Alton, please feel free to introduce the folks that you've brought with you, the other volunteers.
I will let each of them introduce. There are three more of our board members.
Okay.
And,
Could you speak into the microphone for the sake of the folks at home? Thank you.
Okay, I will let them introduce themselves.
Okay.
Three of our board members, there are a total of 11. So there are 4 of us here, and the rest have other commitments and things of that nature.
Vacation.
Okay, so Ralph Smith, Pat Fields, and Mike Lafferty.
Welcome.
Okay, so Lana's going to email it to me. I'm going to. She's going to email me the presentation. I'm going to put it on this
I'm
thumb
sorry.
drive. Give me 1 second.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and start while they're looking for the, I thought this was all preloaded. Anyway, my name is Peter Alton, and I'm with the Manassas Park Crime Solvers. And good evening to all of you, and I'm glad to be here to tell you all about it. So what is this organization all about? And what it is, it's a program that allows and offers citizens to be able to, in a safe, secure, and most especially anonymous way, notify the police through tips. And there's several ways that they can do that, which I will explain in just a moment. And it's kind of a melding of the citizens, police, and the media. So the history behind this is in 1976 in New Mexico, there was a police who was investigating a crime. It was a robbery murder. And they had the idea to appeal to citizens to get tips and things in to help solve the crime. So that was in 1976. So a couple of years later, the idea of crime solvers came to Virginia, and Fairfax County, unfortunately Fairfax County and not us, was the first program. And so they established it there. And a couple of years later, we started the program in Manassas. Now, it's spread throughout the state, and there are about 50 of these programs throughout the state of Virginia. All right. I apologize. I thought it was loaded.
Oh, it's just repeated.
There you go. So how do I skip?
Let's see. Okay, it looks like that's supposed to be the.
Yeah,
So you can just scroll down.
Just
or
scroll.
Use this down button right here.
okay. All right. Okay, so I kind of went over this, the anonymity of it. So this is very key to the program. There are 3 laws they're state laws that allow the ability to have this operate. The first one developed the program so that these are private, nonprofit Virginia corporations, and it offers anonymity to persons who are providing information to resolve a crime. And also it specifies and talks about the relationship between citizens, the police, and the media. And any information concerning the people who provided the tip is inadmissible in court. So these people never have to testify or anything. So that's one of the good things that hopefully will encourage people to come through this program. The second one is the protection. There's a lot of, the law specifies different reasons why information can be released to the public or to other things, but it specifically says that you cannot release any of the identifying information of individuals who report tips. And the third one really helps to set up the Crime Solvers Board, and it in essence protects us from civil suits and civil liability, unless it's malfeasance and things of that nature. But we have some protection in addition to having insurance, liability insurance. So that's a nice comforting kind of feeling I have. So what does it do? So Crime Solvers provides the tools so that people can anonymously help law enforcement fight crime. And I'll show you how that all works. What did I do?
Everyone can hear me back home. Can you please mute your mics? Thank you.
Okay. So whenever the police have a press release from either police department, we try to make sure that we post it to the Crime Solvers website and Facebook page. And when we post it on those pages, we make sure that there's information about the phone number that people can call in, or the P3 tip portal. There's a software program that allows you to enter it, so you can just use your cell phone or whatever to report the crime. So we try to make sure that it's always there. What am I doing wrong?
You just gotta click on it.
All right. So there's several ways that people can report it. You can go through with, let's see, it should be, yeah, you see the phone number, 703 phone number. You can call that number, or you can go to P3 it's P3.com, excuse me, P3tips.com. And the minute you go to that, the website, they'll ask you, is this the US? Are you in Virginia? Are you in Manassas or Manassas Park? And then the form, which you cannot read up there, this form comes up, which allows you to enter all the information that you need to report the crime. And the third method is with the QR code, which we have on our pamphlets, and we're having new signs that will be posted in both cities. These are 12 by 18 metal signs that are going to be on buildings and on posts. And you just go up, has a QR code on it, hit that, whammo, it opens up the form that you see there on your iPhone or whatever, and then you can fill that in and send it in. So those are the different methods which you can do. And then once the tip is received by the police coordinators, then the person is given, they don't give their name or address or anything or phone number, they're given a unique code. And then that code identifies this tip. And so what the person can do is periodically inquire, just, hey, is 007, did you make an arrest? And what's going on? And that's how they communicate. No one can call these people because they don't know who they are, which is a good thing. So the tip then goes to the local law enforcement and they begin their investigation. Then, if an arrest is made, doesn't have to be a conviction, but if an arrest is made by the law enforcement people and the individual is checked in and aha, it's been made, then they're eligible to get a reward. The police coordinator at our monthly board meetings will let us know that this tip resulted in an arrest. Then it's up to the board to decide how much cash reward is provided. So, for example, for Manassas Park, Lieutenant Dustin Walker is our coordinator who comes to our board meetings. So if something happens in Manassas Park, he'll let us know, then the board will react and make a decision on how much reward to give. It's capped at $1,000 because of tax issues. Under $1,000 and under, you don't have to claim any income or anything like that, and you're paid in cash. So, which I think helps part of the anonymity. The person would go to, say, a local bank after we've allocated the money. They get a PIN number, they go to the bank, see the bank manager, they have a PIN number, and he looks in the envelope, aha, it matches, hands the money, they're gone. So that's how it works. It's fairly straightforward once something is done. Here's what we don't do. We don't solve crimes, we're not law enforcement, we don't prevent crimes, we're not in that business. So, anyway, the names are different in different parts of the world. Crime solvers, crime stoppers, and so forth. There are over 1,000 programs around the world, and you really can't see very clearly, but this is a police station in Scotland, and in the window there's a sign talking about this kind of program in Scotland. It could be in Gaelic for all I know, but anyway, so it's international, this concept. We have as our logo, good old Sherlock Holmes, since he was a pretty crafty, wily investigator, observer, scientist, and everything else. So we thought that would be appropriate as a logo for the crime solvers. So the board of directors, and you can see here, was set up in Manassas in 1987. And interestingly enough, the two individuals who started it are still on the board, which is great for continuity, and it really believes in the program. Manassas Park joined us in 2012, and you can see that volunteers are citizens. We don't get paid anything, and they're from both cities. Either you work here or live here, vice versa. Now, in my particular case, I work part-time in Manassas Park, but I live in Manassas, so I figure I get 2 points. So it is nonprofit. As you see, it's a 501c3 organization, and our money comes from solicitations of businesses and individuals through the both cities. Pretty much these are standard board of director kind of functions to administer the program and so forth. We let's see. Like for instance, one of the policy issues that we set up recently was to revamp how people can join the program. So there's an application process. The individual who's interested, for example, needs to contact the state police, and they have to see if there's any criminal record or anything recorded against them. And then if there is, they then have to let the particular police coordinator know whether there is nothing or there is something. So that makes a difference in possibly people getting on the board. We do publicity things, fundraising, and as I mentioned before, soliciting businesses and stuff. And of course, probably the most critical is determining and paying rewards out to people who provided tips to the program. We try to go to as many community type events as possible. We've been to the National Night Out things, both in Manassas Park and in Manassas. Unfortunately, you guys are not going to do it this year, but we'd love to be there. We were at the Railroad Festival most recently, that was in Manassas. We've been to the African American Festival. They're not having it this year, but 2 years ago and the previous years we were there. And then the Fall Festival that's in Manassas. So we try to get to all those and tell people about the program. So that's one way of publicizing it. So how can you help? We'd love for some way to advertise and let all the citizens know about this program. And we have information, pamphlets and things that we can provide about the tip line and about the phone number that people can call. As an example, since I live in Manassas, when I get my utility bill, there's always a little newsletter in there. And we've actually put an article in the newsletter, I think once or twice, which then, you know, everybody gets a utility bill. If they read the little newsletter, there's information in about it. The other thing we'd love to do is have you encourage more people in the city here to possibly consider joining our board. Could be any one of you, or if you know of other people within the city, business people, citizens, anybody. We'd love to, because we can have more people on the board. And plus we have more people to help advertise too.
Sure.
Any questions or thoughts?
Thank you very much. That was a great presentation. Before we get started, I wanted to formally recognize Manassas City Councilman Ralph Smith. He's with us, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, I'm sure. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so questions or comments? Anyone? Okay, it was very comprehensive. Would the individual from the governing body be a representative from the governing body, or would they be on as a citizen, as a resident of Manassas Park?
And they would not be on as an official government person. They would be on as just a citizen.
If anyone's interested. We'll see if anyone is interested.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or if any of these folks are interested, we'd love to.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so this is some information in here. You'll see samples of the kinds of.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
to
There's no
perceive.
food in there, but it's examples of some of the things that we use to advertise the program.
Okay, super. Thank you. So how many Manassas Park residents would you want? Are you looking to fill a certain number of spots, or?
No, not particularly. I know that Pat, how many, we can use another 5 or 6 people on the board?
5 or 6, especially for Manassas Park.
Yeah.
Because most of the representation now is from the city of Manassas, and we would love to have residents from the park.
6, okay.
Businesses or individuals.
Okay.
When are your meetings usually held?
Oh, I'm sorry, Peter, I didn't mean to cut it on.
What?
Our meeting is the second Tuesday of the month. We meet at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
And we have been rotating, we just started back in person unfortunately because of COVID last year. We met, the last 3 meetings have been at Manassas Park Police Department, and now the next 3 will be at Manassas City Police Department. And then the first of the year, we will start rotating between
Okay.
the 2 again. Yes.
Mr. Alton, could you repeat the meeting time again for the folks at home on the microphone? They may not have heard what you said. That's okay.
10 o'clock, 10 a.m. in the morning.
10 in the morning.
Yeah.
Is it a specific day each month, or?
It's,
Second Tuesday.
yeah, second Tuesday of each month. And the last several meetings were here in Manassas Park at the police headquarters. And the next 2 or 3 will be in Manassas, and there's a conference room in the police department there. But the best meeting is in December, when we have a breakfast meeting, okay? And we invite the chiefs from both cities, sheriff, Prince William County. We'd love for them all to come. And, you know, an opportunity for us to then answer any questions or explain the program to them further if they'd like. So,
Okay.
yeah, so we missed last year, so we're looking forward to this December, we'll have our breakfast meeting. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.
And thank you for the goodie bags. Okay. You're more than welcome to stay with us, but we understand you have busy schedules and, okay.
All right, thanks, Brown.
Thanks again, folks. Next, we want to welcome Volunteer Prince William, a volunteer organization, and I believe Ms. Bonnie Fulford, the executive director, is with us this evening. Welcome.
Welcome, good to see you, Mayor Reichel, and thank you, Councilman Moore, for inviting me this evening. I'm delighted to be here. I wanted to catch them before they left. They need volunteers. I'm the woman. I can help them. I can help them get some volunteers, so I will be in touch. Okay, so how do I get to the presentation? It was in the email that went out with the agenda. So if anybody has that email, I have that email on my phone I could send. And in the meantime, never at a loss for words. I just wanted to mention to the crime solvers folks, they can use our website. So I will be in touch with them because they can specify that they're looking particularly for individuals from Manassas Park to help out. And I'll start with a story just as we're getting in. So before we get started, Volunteer Prince William, this is our 40th anniversary, and we are the connector organization, and we serve Prince William County, Manassas, and Manassas Park. We just updated our mission statement, and we are building stronger communities by offering volunteers with opportunities to serve. So that's what we do. We work closely with nonprofit organizations and government organizations and the volunteers. So we kind of have two audiences, the folks who need volunteers and the folks who want to volunteer. And I want you to think about, we all have a favorite nonprofit organization, the one that we donate to, the one that we think about. And so think for a minute about your favorite nonprofit organization, whether it's an animal welfare organization or a food pantry. Think about that organization with no volunteers. How would they get their work done? Who would do all that heavy lifting? So we're here to help them find the appropriate volunteers for the appropriate positions that they need. So that's kind of the why we exist piece of that. And my next slide is going to be who we are. And who we are is many things to many people. We are not defined as a human services organization, but truly we are sort of a non-traditional human service organization because many of our organizational partners are human service organizations. So, APS and SERVE are the big ones. Catholic Charities is right here in Manassas Park. You all were home to the Community Feeding Task Force warehouse for these many months of moving the food around to all the food pantries. Started out with 32 food pantries in the greater Prince William area, and I think we're up to 86 now. So that was a lot of food that was moving. sometimes I feel like we're 211 for the locality, because we'll get calls and somebody's looking for a particular service, and somehow or another they get our number. What I'm happy to tell you is we usually know where to direct them because we have a relationship with those nonprofit organizations that they're looking for. Our core function is volunteer connections, so that piece of that back and forth between the volunteers and the nonprofits. We serve the nonprofit community by empowering them with the extra people to help them get the job done that they need to do. We have an annual volunteer recognition event, which we haven't been able to have in the last couple of years because of COVID, but traditionally, my board of directors, which I want to thank folks that came out tonight and support, they cook hot dogs and hamburgers. We usually have 300 people. But all the nonprofit organizations are able to invite not only their volunteers, but the family of those volunteers. So that's kind of, I figure, is the payback, because we're taking that family member away when they're doing their volunteer work. So now we get to celebrate with the whole family. We have that. And we also have a volunteer coordinators network that meets monthly. We're getting ready to start meeting monthly again, where we provide time for networking, and we usually have a speaker so they can kind of get a little bit of professional development on the side while they get to kind of compare notes with each other and share best practices. On our website, which is www.volunteerprincewilliam.org, nonprofits can go in and post their volunteer needs, and volunteers can go in and kind of shop around for what they want to do. They can shop by cause, they can shop by their interest area. If they want to learn a new skill, suppose you sit at a desk and crunch numbers all day and you really want to go pick up trash or walk puppies, do something different than you do at work. There's something on our website for you, and you can search the website by what those areas of interest are. Or if you're passionate, the best volunteers are the ones who are passionate, that are mission driven. You can find what it is that you're looking for on our website. I have to refer to my notes because sometimes I go down a rabbit hole with a story, and I want to make sure I don't drag you all down that rabbit hole. We have currently just under 10,000 registered volunteers on our website. So if you are, ta-da, drum roll. I'm going to tell you a story about Miss Connor. She's one of our volunteers. She's signed up as a pet-friendly shelter volunteer. So in the event of a disaster, if we are ramping up a shelter where you can bring your pet, she's on my call list. So, okay.
You just hit the down arrow.
The down arrow. There we go. Okay. Our tagline is, "It begins with the power of one." And I particularly like to share this with children because I don't want them to ever to believe that one person can't make a difference. So our tagline begins with the power of one. So let's see, we're gonna go here. Now, for those of you who've been around for a while, you're bound to know somebody in this picture. And you can tell it's an older picture. But these folks are still serving our community. Well, one of them at least is retired. So why we exist, this was at one of our volunteer recognitions. I noticed a couple of my pictures in here are from the city of Manassas, but we're more than happy to come into Manassas Park to have some of our volunteer recognition events. And when you get done building over there, I hadn't been through here in a few weeks. There's been some big changes going on. And the why we exist, as I stated, is to connect volunteers to organizations that need their help and build those stronger communities. We are many things to many people. To the nonprofit organizations and government agencies for whom we find volunteers, we are support. for the volunteers that are looking to give back to the community. We can help them find the right volunteer position if they're looking for a job and they're looking to bolster their resume. If they're a college student and they need some community service hours to put on that college application, we can help them with that. We generally can just make people feel better about themselves, because when you go and you help someone else, you are grateful. It makes you more grateful for what you have. And I say the great equalizer is, no matter what your economic status is, no matter where you came from, we all have 24 hours in a day. And it's what you do with that 24 hours in your day that makes a difference. And many times it can make a difference in someone else's life. So as the Volunteer Connector organization for the greater Prince William area, our website is available. Nonprofits and government organizations can go in and register. It's a very simple process, couple of clicks, and you can register, and then you can go in. Not only can you post volunteer needs, you can post your events. And as I mentioned, we've got 10,000 people that are registered on our site. We routinely have over 1,800 hits per week on our website. So you can advertise events, and we have networking opportunities and professional development offerings, and the big volunteer recognition, which we're looking forward to being able to do again. You might recognize some of the folks that in this picture. We were at a volunteer recognition event, and they were registering folks. This photo is from a volunteer orientation. We were actually at the ARC of Greater Prince William. And our matching platform enables volunteers to search by area of interest, location, cause, whether it's family friendly, if it's outdoors. And when they respond on our website and they click that response button, it takes them immediately to that or to that nonprofit organization, so that when they are registering for that need, they're registering with that nonprofit organization. So then it takes us out of the middle and it connects them directly with the place that they want to do their volunteering. In addition to our core mission of connecting volunteers and building a stronger community, we have some in-house programs. One of them is, if you're familiar with Americorps, now it's Americorps Senior, or the Retired and Senior Volunteer Program, Rsvp for short, where we connect volunteers who are, what I like to say, age 55 and better. And their motto is lead with experience. We particularly, when the gentleman from Crime Solvers mentioned that their meetings are at 10 o'clock in the morning, a lot of people are at work at 10 o'clock in the morning, but we have 212 registered Rsvp volunteers. They're retired. They're generally home that time of day if they're not out volunteering, so we can hook them up. We work with the Office of Criminal Justice and provide clients with the opportunity to work off community service hours, or if they have to pay a fine that they can't afford, it's $10 per hour towards your fine. And we register those individuals, we contact the site, do an introduction to the site, and keep track of their hours and provide their completion letter for them. Disaster services, and I just want to give a shout out to one of your own, Claudia Calderon, is now working with us. You might recognize her from your CERT teams. She is now leading our disaster services program. And we've been really busy this past year with all the COVID happenings. I'm going to get into that in just a minute. And our Untrim a Tree holiday gift program, which you might be familiar with, where we match children to be adopted in order to receive holiday gifts. In 2020, We had 91 children from the city of Manassas Park on our rolls to receive volunteer gifts. Hooked up with volunteers who were providing the gifts. We work very closely with Randy Knights. She is a gem. She is very instrumental in helping us with that program. So I'll just go into, I kind of did this already. See, I should have been looking at my notes. Rsvp for people age 55 and better. We also, prior to COVID, we had about 1/3 of the Meals on Wheels drivers registered through Rsvp, but they were using staff during COVID to do that. But we recently got the call, start recruiting again because they're opening the senior centers and ramping that program back up for volunteers. We do a medical transportation program for veterans and their spouses, all volunteer drivers. We have 20 volunteers at the hospital, an additional 142 volunteers who are with Rsvp scattered with various nonprofits. Most recently, our Rsvp folks were managing the Community Feeding Task Force helpline where people could call to find out where the closest food pantry was to their home. Our alternative community service program, I just mentioned, we do pretrial, parole, probation, provide the site placement, track the hours, and do the casework and the communication. There's a lot of communication back and forth between the client and the judicial system, and we provide those letters of completion. Disaster services, this picture was in 2016. That Humvee is owned by one of our volunteers who drove 32 people to dialysis appointments. She got to meet one of my board members in the parking lot of one of the dialysis facilities, flagged them down and convinced them that they needed to plow them out. So we were able to get people into the dialysis center. We are written into the emergency operations plan as either the lead or the support for the volunteer and donations management annex. And we were activated and very busy in the blizzards of 2009 and 10, the earthquake, the flooding from Tropical Storm Lee, which we didn't get it quite so bad here, but on the east end of Prince William County, an entire mobile home park washed into the Potomac. The derecho, the blizzard of 2016, and COVID-19, I put 2020 ... because unfortunately we're not done yet. Our Untrim a Tree holiday gift program, I know this looks like chaos. This is the gymnasium at the Boys and Girls Club. The day before pickup, we have donors that donate toys by family. We've got a system for this. It doesn't look like it, but we do have a system. And the school couriers from Prince William County come and do pickup by school. These are organized by school. In Manassas and Manassas Park, we work with the Knights of Columbus, and they have a similar looking situation at Knights of Columbus. They do the dispersal of the holiday gifts from the building at Knights of Columbus, and that's where Randy gets really involved with that. So we are here for you. All our services are available to local government as well as to nonprofit organizations. If you need volunteers, have events. Do you want training for any of your staff in volunteer management? Do you know someone in need of community service? We can take care of you. Do you know a veteran in need of a ride to a medical appointment? We get those referrals from Area Agency on Aging, who serves all 3 jurisdictions. I wanted to mention, I don't know if any of your finance people are here tonight, but a lot of government grants will let you count volunteer time as an in-kind portion of your grant. Volunteer time in the state of Virginia just went up to $27 an hour. It was just just this month it went up. It was valued at $26.50. It just went up. So think about that. Think about the volunteers that you have. Are you tracking their hours? And you can put that into your grants as part of an in-kind donation. We have done a number of collaborations with Manassas Park, the Blizzard, the Untrimetry program, I showed you the picture. And it was a lot of fun in 2019. You all did an emergency shelter exercise. And we worked with Randy, and the Red Cross came in and we set things up. And we brought the volunteers in who pretended to be the survivors of the disaster, and they got to walk through and be registered and assigned their sleeping quarters for the short term. We also partnered with the ARC of Greater Prince William, and we were able to bring in some volunteers with disabilities, which gave staff an opportunity to work with a different population and be able to think about, well, what would we do if somebody's in a wheelchair or somebody's going to need oxygen, and how that would be handled. So the ARC is another one of our good partners. And COVID-19, my friend Amy Feinberg was here earlier for a good portion of COVID. We were joined at the hip. The Medical Reserve Corps got 103 volunteers through Volunteer Prince William's database. So if you have questions, I'm available. Bonnie Fulford, I've got my email up here, my phone number. And we're here to help.
Okay, thank you.
So
Thank
if
you. That was a
anybody has
great
any
presentation.
questions, I'd be
Thank
happy
you.
to.
Questions or comments?
No, thank you.
That must have been a very complete presentation with no questions.
I guess, or everybody's fallen asleep.
No, I assure you that's not it.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
so
Bonnie.
much.
Thank
We
you very much.
appreciate your presence here tonight.
Thank you, board member.
And next we have city branding. We welcome a representative from Arnett, Muldrow and Associates.
Hey, Ben, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Leslie.
Excellent. I'm going to make you the presenter. Give me 1 second here.
Okay.
Good evening, governing body. This is, again, a recap of the survey that we did a few months ago on branding, the results of that, and also kind of where we're headed when it comes to branding. So, okay, we can see your slides. Ben, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for letting us join you. I'm actually joined by my brother and business partner, Trip Muldrow, and we are thrilled to give you an update on the branding process for Manassas Park and share with you some insights that we learned in the community survey, as well as where we are to this point with the branding development, and we are pretty excited to share with you tonight. So we're going to jump right in. I'm going to let Trip talk to you a little bit about the survey results, and then we will share with you some of the designs. Trip, you need to unmute. Nope, you're still muted. Now try. All right, well, as Trip looks like he's having technical difficulties, he's actually, we're on opposite sides of the country. He's joining us from, I think, Washington State, and I'm here in Delaware, but I'll give you a quick summary, and then if he can jump in.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
We got you.
Okay. I had a little technical difficulty. Anyway, thank you all. It's a pleasure to be here. We had a really good completion rate on the survey, as 66%. It was open from March till May, and we really just opened it up, not just for input on branding, but downtown quality, economic development, and community character as well, and ideas for the future. And I think as a governing body, I hope you'll find it informative as you all continue to make decisions, because a lot of what we learned affirms a lot of what you all are working on. The predominant zip chance to, in there for being in Manassas Parks, to pick the ones that kind of best apply to them. And you can see here from the survey results that people can make multiple choices, so you have options here, but East End, West End, and live and work in the community are all included in here. And just a handful are tourists from outside or other relationship to the community and the survey takers. This one starts to give you kind of a heat map of how people feel about community, where they are and where they live. As far as a great place to live, we're looking at 45% either strongly agree or agree. When we start talking about the unique heritage and history, we get around 33%. One of the things that you'll notice in the survey is a lot of people have kind of a neutral feeling on this. And this really points to what you're working on as far as downtown, creating a place, and continued work in the community. And then certainly you see people are very interested in dining and shopping options in the community. So as you get down through these desires and where people agree, they want to see these things happen. So it definitely affirms the hard work that you're putting into the town center effort. As far as we look at what an image people, the question was, how positive of an image do you think people in the region have? And so at the end of the day, the predominant answer again is somewhat neutral. And then as residents were asked and answered, some of them, we ended up having over 50% say that it was somewhat negative or negative. And so the comments that were related to this is this whole idea of misconceptions, that it's lost its small downtown feel. It's a place that you drive through, and then certainly we heard this throughout the survey, people don't know Manassas Park. And so we know that this is something you all deal with in explaining who you are in the region as it relates to surrounding communities. We had a mixture of comments, really good ones: home, quiet, small town, tight-knit, welcoming. We also had some, boring, quiet, high taxes. And so you see these things kind of weave through the survey as it goes through. Some kind of the postcard image that we asked about, the 4th of July event, definitely something that people pointed at. Their homes. The parks came out, the walking trails. This really does become, one of the things that runs through the community. And then the desire to reflect diversity. And of course, the cougar paw comes out as well in this. If we're looking at a single image that best describes the personality of downtown, what would it be? And the number one response, I'm not sure what downtown Manassas Park is. And so this is something that, you all are working on. Then other things do come up: Blooms Park, restaurants, diversity, community, and people are even being aspirational. And top 3 places within Manassas Park you'd recommend a person visiting for the first time. And you get everything from things like the community center, Blooms Park, to specific things like Guapo's, Preston's Pub, and Tortino Mayor, and the train. So this really runs the gamut on the responses for this as well. If we were redesigning a welcome to Manassas Park sign, what phrase or tagline would you use? And
sponsor of this episode of podcast.
and sorry. That's strange, my computer beast. So friends meet, families grow your home. This is your home too. A small town in a big city, a neighborly community, one city united and diverse to all. I love these. I mean, where the world becomes a village and friendliness is our common value. This is your Manassas Park, our community, our family. So you get to see this really interesting thing where people aspire in these answers for what they want to see in the community. What are the biggest misconceptions? That it's a bedroom community, that it's high crime or dangerous, that it's run down, backwards, and then of course part of Manassas or part of Prince William County. And both of these things are really important as you all continue your work. We know you're working really hard on these efforts. And the fact that you're a city and so you're not part of Prince William County and that you're not Manassas Park. And so these are just some of the answers. Some types of retail and restaurant businesses that people wanted. Entertainment and restaurants. I mean, the restaurants was far, far, far away the number one. We did offer in the survey different kinds of things, some options. And so family-friendly entertainment, farmers market, grocery, fine dining, all of those give, really high ranking. And then you see things like even nightlife, 1 of every 3, or 35% indicated this is something people wanted to see. Less enthusiastic about things like fast food restaurants. And then there were a lot of write-in answers: brewery, trampoline park, deli, art supply, very specific things: coffee shop, music store, arcade, pharmacy. So a lot of real specific things and general things, but the restaurants ended up being number one. Really loved this one. Kind of public spaces and activities and cultural components are needed. This whole idea of passive gathering places, plazas, courtyards, small green areas. This was number one, and it relates very well to the other top answers: live music, events, public art. And what we see here is that the community is very, very proud of its parks and open spaces and the private spaces, but what they'd love to have is a passive gathering spot. Well, for you all who have been working so hard on the town center, on the downtown, this is just affirmation that you are really fulfilling the desire of the community. Next slide. What else is needed to create a more successful environment for businesses? Better parking, better taxes, advertising and marketing, which was good for us to see since we're doing branding, community events, sidewalks, more businesses, and dog-friendly areas. All these are things that, you all are really working on. As far as what should the identity focus on, the most important thing, the thing that ranked far and away the highest, is creating a distinct identity for downtown. And so we had 28% of the respondents indicate that that's the most important thing. You add to that the second most important, we end up almost at the 46-47% mark. And so really the thing that people most do is create that distinct identity. And then the next top ranking one was tourism and promotion of that. So very interesting results here on what should that focus be. And then what other community do you feel like Manassas Park competes with? And of course, I think we'd probably be surprised if Manassas wasn't number one. Woodbridge, PW County, and a lot of your neighbors: Gainesville, Occoquan, Clifton, Fairfax, and so forth. So those are kind of the top responses that came out there. And then what distinguishes the community? The fact that you're diversity, you have the diversity, but maybe there's less to do, so far less business. This tax thing did kind of run through the survey. I'll confess to you that I don't know all the surveys. Tight-knit community feel, the train station, the fact that weekend events, the people are friendlier. So you get this really mix, like positive and negative. People are friendly, it's more expensive. So it's an interesting kind of piece that comes through here. And then activities and businesses. How do people find out about them? I will tell you that it is fascinating to me. Ben and I have been doing this a really long time. We see social media, number one, often. Very rarely do we use this website as an answer to the question here. We give kudos to the staff of the city for ranking number 3, because the city website shows up as like 0 on how people get information. So I thought that was really good to see rankings come through. And then you see the others indicated, whether it's the Prince William Times or Patch or things like that, that provide some information. And then what ways do you feel like the community can be better promoted? Increase social media, certainly enhance presence on regional websites, advertising, really ranked high, but that increased social media was just the runaway favorite. And then certainly events ended up being the write-in favorite. So that was kind of the one that, came through. And then, of course, that comment, we do not want it advertised, which certainly we here in many communities, we're comfortable with as anything. But by and large, people really want to see that increased social media. Better website, better presence on social media, less robocalls, email, newsletter, just, how to better communicate. That's what we heard in the responses. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Ben and let him talk about the brand system. So, Ben, it's all you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for the summary. I think one of the big things that we always try to do is we try to really look at creating ways to connect those dots. And, when you look at those survey results, you see that focus on diversity. You see that focus on really wanting to set yourself apart and being able to create a distinction. It is so very difficult when your primary competitor shares your name. And that thing that really sets you apart is that park in your name. So we wanted to start by creating a diverse color palette made up of very natural tones. And we selected this color palette. We've got 7 colors that kind of make that up, with some great greens and blue and kind of earth tones that really create this nice kind of natural feel. Then from there, we started to look at our typefaces, and knowing that that word park is really the thing that sets you apart. Not only does it distinguish you from your neighbor, but it helps to highlight this really amazing attribute that you as a city have with the remarkable per capita square footage of your green space for your citizens. So we wanted to create a nice, strong foundation typeface, which is a sans serif typeface, with this accent typeface to really show off that word park with that beautiful descender on the R. Something that you could see and you could really own. And then we started to really look at that identity of the community, that identity of Manassas Park. We picked up on the vernacular of the locals who referred to it as the park, and just really kind of adopted that simplicity of that place that they lived. We learned about those differences between the West End or West Side and East End or East Side or Bloom, and then really wanted to dig into that identity of that central core. What is it? Is it downtown? Is it Central Park? Is it town center? Or is it towny century, as every other community in Northern Virginia does with these new developments? And we saw this as an extremely important opportunity for you to celebrate this small town feel and this true celebration of the many people that make up your place. And with that, it really led to this kind of simple evolution of the name, a feeling that would be inspired by many people that would be there to tell those many stories, to celebrate those many opportunities that all come together in one community, in this heart and a place that we call Park Central. The thing that truly stitches together the East and the West, creates that core, and highlights that key differentiating identity that is Manassas Park. With that, we want you to be able to jump out of the gate celebrating Virginia's newest downtown. What better message to bring to the market than from Virginia's youngest city to talk about Virginia's newest downtown? Being able to create this identity that celebrates this natural place to come together, that natural kind of place to gather, that place that your citizens said that they wanted so much, a passive place to share one another and simply appreciate being together. And one of the things that we really love about the simplicity of this system is it allows us to really tell this amazing and diverse story of your community. You can see we created a variation that's simply for Manassas Park. And here, all of those leaves really celebrate those different colors and those different elements that make up this truly, truly amazing place that we call the park. And what's beautiful about this system is it gives you these opportunities to create these little sub-identities where you can use color to identify the West and the East, but then bring them all together in the central and really celebrate yourself at the heart. There were so many words and phrases that really came out of this system, that tie into this: grow, tree, roots, thrive, path, play. And then we even explored a lot of different phrases: a walk in the park, concert in the park, and then this series of phrases like rooted in history, rooted in family. Gives us that opportunity to really stitch together all of these concepts and highlight this amazing thing being created in Park Center. Now, with this message, we're really approaching this with an evolutionary strategy where we launch with Virginia's newest downtown, but then we begin to adopt the community with those phrases like rooted in community. We have kind of a togetherness and unity focused message where we talk about 3 parts, 1 park, and then we really focus in on opportunity with that simple phrase, thrive, giving that opportunity to truly grow legs and have this system evolve and work on facets. We even went through a process where we brainstormed different ways that this might be able to be incorporated into future development. Terms like Parkside, Village at Park Central, Trailside Lofts, Picnic Food Hall, Park Shelter, Playground Social, and Pavilion Co-work. Again, spurring that private sector to take that unique brand equity of an park and build it into their developments. Once you define those color palettes and those typefaces, it allows us to go through and really shore up that city seal that Manassas Park has had since its creation, but then also create this slightly cleaner, formalized version of those actions of the governing body and the city government itself. We went through and looked at how the brand might materialize into banners that we see throughout the community, really highlighting those many parts that create this one amazing place. We explored how the brand could make its way into branded merchandise, both providing revenue streams for local business and promoting local pride. And then one of the really, really exciting parts was showing how the brand can integrate into this amazing new development and how it can be highlighted in this new City Hall building downtown. Bringing and integrating the brand into this structure that really symbolizes the heart of the place that people call home. So we've been excited to be integrating this system in, and we would love to hear your thoughts about tonight.
Wow, that was a great presentation. Thank you very much.
I'll be posting it on the website tonight and sharing it with you as well.
Okay, super. Gosh, just love what they did with the word rooted. You know, that's, wow. Questions or comments? It's hard to take it
lot to
all in,
digest.
isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a lot to digest.
Yeah, it's,
We always describe it a little bit like drinking out of a fire hose. It's a lot to take in real quick, for sure.
artwork is beautiful.
I do have
Mayor
some
Banks?
questions. Thank you for the presentation and then the survey results and all. That was great. So my question comes, what is the phrase that you developed?
I guess it's a evolution, but if you want to go back to where the slide where it says Virginia's newest downtown and kind of how it evolves.
Yeah.
So the name of our downtown is Park Central, and then off of that they came up with different for the downtown, but also for the community and kind of the overall. At the end of the day, after we establish our downtown, get our brand out there, the ending is going to be that thrive, kind of that one word symbol with the logo.
Okay.
So this is kind of more the community one.
Got it.
Right. This is our how we take off with the downtown, but we have the Park Central also, and you saw with the downtown in front of the City Hall, the branding with our logo behind the screen as well, backlit hopefully at night, and then kind of what that turns into in the long run to describe the entire community, taking that branding of the downtown, but really expanding it throughout the city. And Ben, if you want to add anything to that.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest things that we really landed on was with a community like Manassas Park that it's trying to really carve out that awareness. One of the biggest things that we wanted to give you was we wanted to give you diversity in your messaging. We wanted to give you that opportunity to have the right thing to say at the right time in that right conversation. So we do think that idea of Virginia's newest downtown, that's a really, really impactful statement, but it also has a shelf life. We understand that it's only going to be effective for a short period of time, but it gives you that interesting boost. It gives you that thing that maybe piques people's interest a little. And then you start to get in there and you start to really get to explore with some of these different components and figuring out where you are really kind of connecting with the community. You know, you'll be managing both internal and external messages, everything from cultivating that investment internally, from bringing customers and visitors in externally. And we want you to have that freedom to really kind of navigate and evolve that system with an entire toolbox that we've given you. I think oftentimes in the world of community branding, we set this expectation that you can only say this one thing, and you have too much going on to try to filter it down to that one statement. You need to be able to evolve, and you need a message system that's going to be able to keep up pace with the amazing things that are happening in Manassas Park. And it was great to hear the presenter just before us who, made the point to say she hadn't been over in a little while, and it was amazing how much was going on in Manassas Park. And you are going to hear that message over and over and over again. And it's great to be able to have a system that can evolve and adapt with that and have the tools that you need.
Okay. And my last question is about the logo. I mean, you use 3 different typefaces, or I call them fonts. So that one for Park, what typeface is that, and what made you come up with that one in terms of your survey results? Because that's a very unique font.
When I was selecting, the system itself is made up of 2. So you've got Manassas, and then the tagline are kind of based off that same sans serif typeface. When I selected the word Park, when I was looking at those different typefaces, I had a couple different elements and attributes that I was trying to balance at once. First was kind of a character-driven attribute. I wanted to be able to both have that clean and contemporary approach of the sans serif and the word Manassas, but there were a lot of things in the survey that kind of pointed back to this small town feel, this honor for tradition and this honor for history. So I wanted to start to look for something in what we call the stereotype, something that's a little bit more traditional. But then the other thing that I really wanted, knowing that Manassas Park is right next to Manassas, I wanted that word to be visually unique so that you could own it when you used it. So in looking through those, being able to find a typeface that, and I can't tell you the name off the top of my head, but one of the things I really liked about it was it has several different variations of every letter. So as we go through, we can use these different variations to really create custom word types for those really important concepts. So I was trying to stitch together both that ability to really own the uniqueness of your identity and some of those traditional and historic values that the community said that they held close.
That was a really long answer for also the flow of the word part. Really, we thought looked good with this typeface, and I have to reinforce what Ben said. Is we wanted to not diminish but minimize Manassas and focus on Park, and that really gives us the chance to do that both with Park Central as a brand for the downtown and for the community as a whole.
The tree is very pretty. Did you intend for the tree to be a variation of the tree of life?
Well, there were a lot of different elements that kind of go into that. Like if you obviously trees are such strong symbols of community. They branch out. They're made up of many, many different leaves, many different, they kind of stretch out, but then they also have that strength in that trunk and, the strength in those roots. And, this idea of the tree of life, this idea of something that was very solid, very round, very, it's a tree, but it's also self-contained and very connected. I think all of those things really led to that design, having something that kind of carried that strength that really tied in. I think a lot of times one of the things that you think of when you go to the word park and you think about tree, you get very organic, very textural. And I wanted something that was very clean and very solid. I do love that kind of concept and cyclical nature of the trio.
Thank you.
And one other thing, that the way Ben designed the tree too, it harkens to your seal as well by having the three parts. So you have the three diamonds, and this really helps to also reinforce that West, East, and now Park Central by having these three different components. You can divide it into different components even further if you wanted to. This idea of sales between neighborhoods and diverse community members coming together are all communicated in it too.
So
I love the tree of life suggestion. I don't know if we actually discussed that as we were developing it.
Yeah, I can see where the word rooted grew out of this also. Yeah.
So I have a question about the usage of this. So we have these logos or brands, I forget what the exact word to use, this messaging with the new logo. We also have, is that a new city seal? Or are we going to keep, okay.
No, the city seal is the city seal. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you take me back to that slide, please?
Can you go to the city seal slide?
Yeah. Wrong way, sorry.
It's all right. We got nowhere to go. Okay. So can you walk me through? Yeah, that's the one that's causing me a little bit of, I don't know what the word to use, concern, or leaves me kind of perplexed. So are you, kind of walk me through what that second, that new revised one, what your thoughts behind that was for and where we might use that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this city seal is a really, really important graphic element in the life of the city, but it's also, they aren't really designed to be very good communicators.
Yeah.
You know, when you look at the overall composition of the seal, they're very much in the traditions of heraldry. You know, you look at the name Manassas Park, and it makes up about 1/10 the overall compositional height of the seal. It's almost a little bit more of a kind of like a stamp of approval. It's a stamp of being official. So oftentimes what we try to do is we try to give the city that opportunity to have kind of the formalized governmental variant of that. So, there are times where the seal just, maybe it's not the best communicator. We have some communities where they're going through, and let's say that they're doing business cards. City staff might have more of this logo mark, while the elected officials and governing body would have this, where the seal might be on business permits and things like that. You might have certain elements where a grant application or something that's a little bit more public facing could be represented with this variation. So being able to kind of stay true to those colors and the shield and the 3 diamonds, but then simply giving you an element that helps to maybe be a little bit better at communicating City of Manassas Park. Not meant to replace it, just meant to be an additional tool in the city's communication.
And I imagine our style guide would indicate when to use the one on the right versus when to use the one on the left.
It's best judgment. So, for example, Prince William Chamber of Commerce, right? We provide annual contributions, and they have this like wall where they have everyone who kind of is a sponsor, the different types of levels on there. And I see Prince William County, and I see City of Manassas, and I can read Prince William County, and I can read City of Manassas, and then our seal comes up, and I can't read what that is.
Right.
This is a variation of the seal that lets everyone know this is the City of Manassas Park. So it's best judgment on our documents and other things. The seal still makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
But my point is that our style guide would clearly indicate when to use each one if we should go down that path.
We would give overall guidance in the style guide.
Okay.
I think that you as a governing body, we always see it as an evolutionary process where you all may tilt one or the other and give you the style guide gives you the basic guardrails, so like don't run off the road.
Right.
And then within the guardrails, it gives you a little bit of latitude. You as a governing body can make that decision on, we work in a lot of cities where the seal, the formal seal is reserved for the formal governing body action. And the formal governing body members, and then the other piece is used almost everywhere else. Where you draw that line, each community, we can put general guidance in. Each community kind of sees that as a evolution. And so, but we'll put that general guidance.
Absolutely. And we can also share with you all, 2 examples kind of come to mind in the state of Virginia. When we did the branding for the city of Harrisonburg is still very seal centric. So they use, even though they have an alternative that's a little bit cleaner, they very much lean to the seal for a lot of their governmental communication. While right up the road in Woodstock, Virginia, they reserve the seal for far more formal actions, and they use their alternative logo in a lot more of their communication. So we'll set the kind of general parameters of, kind of lean here or kind of lean there. And just like Tripp and Laszlo said, it really, it is yours. Both of them are yours, and you're able to kind of feel that out a little bit. But we can both give you some guidance on where to work from, and we can show you what both sides of the spectrum look like.
Okay.
But
we've had an amazing time doing this in communities where, for example, we're working in Leonardtown, Maryland, and their seal is in their charter. And we had found by the time that we got to the seal, it had been photocopied and eroded so much that they had strayed away from the charter. So we had to bring the seal back to the charter in the revision. So if anything, what we've done is also given you a nice piece of vector art that you can use with both of these to keep it real clean.
Okay. Thank you for answering my question.
So it is the city's decision when and where to use the seal, continuing to use the seal.
That's my understanding.
Ours. Yeah.
This is ours, okay.
All this, the branding, everything, it's ours. They're simply just
Okay.
providing us these tools, but there are tools to utilize.
And just to reinforce, I do want to be very, very clear on it. It's absolutely not intended to replace the seal. It's an additional tool. The seal is extremely important.
It is, means a lot.
Sometimes there is just an alternative might be more helpful sometimes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it means a lot to a lot of people, so thank you for that. Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. I love the work that you've done. I appreciate your presentation. I love the emphasis in particular on the word park. The nickname, The Park, I think makes sense going forward. I love the font that's here on the right side. Whether we're using the traditional symbol of the city in official business, that makes sense, as Laura's pointed out. But I do like, in letterhead and other settings, like you say, Laszlo, to be able to read it and understand it from afar, that Manassas Park is contributing to whatever the situation is. Banners and things of that nature, it makes sense to me as well. So I like the way you've tied them both in. On the idea of park, and I'm not sure if this came up in your survey, but you did talk about competitors and Manassas being our number one competitor. And one of the things that I've been irritated by is the fact that the city of Manassas runs through our entire city, Manassas Boulevard.
Manassas Drive.
Manassas Drive. And we should change that to Park Boulevard or Manassas Park Boulevard. I think that's something we should give serious consideration if we're talking about branding and changing our identity. To have Manassas Drive run through our city is problematic because people get confused as to where they're at, and destination is important. So I'd like to have you comment on the name of the major city the name of the major street that runs through our city.
Well, and I will just say this, Tripp and I, we've been doing this together for nearly 2 decades. And one of the biggest challenges in communities is those naming discrepancies that you come across. I mean, Tripp and I did branding for West Des Moines, Iowa. And, when you have a community right next to a community that essentially shares those identities, one of the most difficult things is zip codes. When you have a zip code that does not match up with your jurisdiction, you have identities that become confused because a zip code might be this here or it might be that there. And we definitely heard a little bit about that in Manassas Park. I will say this, anytime you can own and celebrate your identity, I think it's a good thing. I will say that there are certain elements that are harder to change than others. I think that it's one of those things where it's like, hey, we need to paint our brand identity on a railroad trestle, and therefore the first thing we're going to do is deal with the railroad. Well, if you've ever dealt with a railroad before, that's not the most fun. So I think own and celebrate your name in every way possible. If the adoption and kind of shift of an identity is something that's actually feasible and something that's reasonable, I think that anytime you can celebrate that pride, it continues to stoke that flame and that connection that people have with the place that they call home. And that really, at the end of the day, that's what we want to do. We want the people who love Manassas Park to help amplify the economy, amplify the experience, and really become a part of this downtown that you're creating. So I would say any way you can celebrate it, make an opportunity to.
It's funny you say Park Boulevard because that is something we talked about.
Yeah, I know. I think it's a great concept.
It's a good name, yeah.
Or Manassas Park Boulevard.
Do you have a follow-up?
No.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We even did joke internally about the idea of Manassas Parkway, but we know that things can be difficult.
Yeah.
So I've got one final question, and I've had logos designed, and I just helped a friend create his water bottling logo. So will you allow for revisions or other designs? Because I'm not that warm on the park. But I don't know about my colleagues and the typeface. So I'm just asking that question because normally when I get logos, I get different designs, different types of designs.
Usually 3.
Right, usually 3 or more, in addition to the picture as well.
Absolutely. I mean, we will we'll definitely entertain the idea of revisions, but I do want to comment on, we have a very, very distinct approach on this because, designing for communities is different. And, as a designer, if you step up and you say, hey, here are 3 different options, pick whichever one you want, and all 3 of them are good, out the gate, you automatically start to create sides. You start to create division in those people who are making those decisions. And that's not the purpose of the community brand. So we try to step to the plate with what we find to be the best recommendation, but absolutely consider variations and revisions from there. I mean, that is the very reason that we are sharing it with you tonight, is that opportunity to hear your thoughts, and if there are things that you might like to see different variations on, explore those and make sure that we land something that really works for the.
Okay, thank you. Because usually my experience of logo design is it's a progress, it's a process, and so you make iterations here and there or revisions here and there and until everyone's satisfied with it. Beginning with the first design.
And just so yeah, go ahead.
We've been at this for a long time and worked in 600 communities, and what we found through that revision process, through the various committees that comprise government decision making, and I mean this in no disrespect to the governing body or the committee that led this, the Economic Development Committee, is that those revisions tend to erode the design quality of it over time because it's designed by committee. And so part of the reason we write the proposal the way we write it, and we scope the project the way we scope it, and the reason we continue to do this kind of work the way we do it, is that we've seen too many communities evolve the branding process through this discussion and back and forth over months, and it ends up becoming basically a camel in the end of the day.
Okay.
Okay. Questions, comments? Councilmember Hampton?
I think I just need to think about it and look it over.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I remember back in the days when I did communications and worked with graphic artists, they always talked about the CBSI and having a logo that could stand the test of time. Mm-hmm. So I need to think it over. Mm-hmm. I need to look at it. Mm-hmm.
And go back to the downtown slide, because that shows kind of the logo and application as well.
And I know the colors are a little bit muted up here versus what I'd actually seen on a screen.
Yeah.
The actual new City Hall downtown building.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
And it's a little bit more blurry. I can send you kind of the better quality picture, just so you can see kind of what it looks like in application.
Although we're not getting all those windows.
Even if it sounds cheesy, even if you send us the original source document, if that's in Photoshop or whatever format you have it in, so I can just play around with it and change the color of the leaves, or even the background so it's not brown. Maybe it's a light green, so it's a little brighter because it creates a little vibrancy and liveliness versus the brown. So the brown background and Park Central.
Park Central.
So even stuff like that, just to tinker with and play around.
We still want it to look dignified, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Dark green, not a brown.
Yeah. Okay.
That's why I said the screen makes it muted.
It makes it so that's a dark green, not a brown.
Yeah.
The screen.
Yeah, it's a dark green.
The screen just
Yeah,
kind
we
of
see brown.
throws the colors off.
And just because, when we build out the system, what we'll do is there'll be a whole series of variations. There'll be one on reversed out or dark backgrounds, one on light backgrounds, single color, multicolor versions. Like, it's not about landing on one and only one. It's about going through and kind of creating a whole toolkit for you all. And just to kind of reiterate, I mean, this is, this is actually, we're presenting to you all, but we've presented all of this to the internal staff, gone through a round of revisions, edits, and evolution there, and then have presented this to the EDA as well, gone through a round of revisions and edits there. So this is not, straight out the gate. This has been seen by many eyes as well and has been that kind of iterative process. So if there are things you would like for me to take a look at, feel free to send those our way, and we'll go through and make those revisions and share them back.
Okay.
Thank you.
Might I make a suggestion? Could you put the items that you showed us and put it on a black background? I can kind of see it better with a black background when you send it over to us. If
Yeah,
you would,
I can
please.
create something and share that your way.
Okay, thank you so much.
What is the texture behind the tree in that sign?
Yeah, that's the brick. It's going to be,
Oh,
we don't know
it's supposed to be
exactly.
brick.
But that's going to be the actual screen. So on the other side will be the actual screen for everyone in the plaza to watch items. The back, per the current design, is just bare. So we thought this was the perfect opportunity to actually put our city logo there, light it up at night. So it provides a distinct quality to our downtown.
Yeah, I think it looks nice. I just wasn't sure what those lines were behind it. It's kind of noisy.
We still have to work with the design team
Okay.
on the Norton Scott side and figure out what the actual material is going to be. But we haven't presented this yet to Norton Scott. So the first one to
Sure.
show this with you, then we'll follow up and get more input and get your approval. But this is kind of where an idea we were throwing around, just to clarify, because there's this changed slightly, where everything was going to be just one structure, but they weren't able to move some of the utilities here. So they're essentially, we're going to have an extra monument wall to kind of block in with some landscaping as well, to kind of shield everyone's view from all those utilities. So you'll have an opportunity to put something here and then an opportunity to put something back here as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but they're a few feet apart as well. But when you're driving by, it will kind of show as kind of one thing.
Yeah, we certainly do need
Yeah,
to.
I do apologize for the quality on this. And this is a 3D rendering that we copied out of a PDF simply so that we could, kind of look at how some of that integration is. So that SketchUp model that's got kind of they had applied a stone texture to it, but by the time it went through all those different, iterations, it's a bit messy. So that is going to be a texture, a building material texture, either a stone or brick texture. And then we were looking at having a projecting, monumental sign that kind of projected out of it and possibly back it.
I think the good news is we haven't heard any really negative reactions to this. I don't think any of us have any really.
No, I think it looks nice.
I do too.
Yeah. I think it requires a lot more thought. I know the longer I think about the shield, the more I like it, because the shield has always traditionally been a protection symbol, so a symbol of strength. So that's.
We just need to mull it over.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot to take in. It's kind of a shock to the
And maybe
system.
that's for you too, that we provide some additional application samples so that even like working up a governing body business card versus a staff business card, or even just letterhead variation, things like that, it's so often better to see it, how it's would be used, rather than just conceptually on a white background. So that's something we can very easily do.
Sure.
So I thought the city seal would remain on letterhead.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what?
It's your all's discretion.
But what was he saying?
No, it depends.
To work up the samples so that you can see what it looks like in application. So you can see, rather than just a seal on the back, the seal on letterhead. And then we have some cities that entertain with their departments that they use the more simplified piece, and the seal only comes from the governing body.
I see.
It just gives you an example to examine both of those. Again, those are decisions you all make.
And I would ask you all, please send me your comments.
Sure.
Let's not try to redesign this ourselves. None of us are professional marketing people.
I'm not a designer.
What's that?
I'm not a designer,
Right,
so you're not going to get that from me.
Send me your thoughts, your suggestions.
You
I'm
said-
not a designer either. I'm not going to even touch this. I can just kind of give impressions and things like that. That's what's helpful.
You're going to send a presentation, you said,
Yeah,
right? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Any other last minute comments?
I mean, I'll just caution everyone's different in terms of how they make decisions, but I think some things have to wow you and have to grab you immediately. All right? When you see a Tesla, that wows you. Or that luxury car, wow. That's different. I want that. It's got to grab you, and you've got to mull and grapple your mind and feelings over it to warm yourself to it. Then that's a caution right there. And yourself telling you something there when you have to try to convince yourself to like it. So just words of suggestions for everyone, but that's
for those who don't like it. You're saying, because you're assuming that everyone
just in general. I mean, that's just how I look at things. It's got to get me immediately.
Well, and I will speak to that because I will say, I mean, I actually disagree with that comment a little bit because I think that, you all are some of the most invested people in Manassas Park, and we are showing you imagery that has never been associated with it before. Mm-hmm. So, if it feels a little jarring at first, if it feels a little foreign at first, there's this kind of disconnection that some people feel when a place is being visually represented in a way they've seen it before. So I think that, figuring out what you feel like good is, and I think that the idea you shouldn't have to force yourself to like something, that's absolutely true. But I also think that, gauging your gut reaction might not also always be fair when you are trying to see something that is an unfamiliar representation of a place you know very well.
And I personally would never want to make a snap decision about something like this. I think it's good to mull it over.
Yeah, remember, this is an information item. I haven't asked for any action, so I just want to reiterate.
Yeah.
Are residents allowed to give some feedback now too? Since it's up here? Or
Depends by what you mean feedback. So if you want to go through like an official channel of revision.
No, if a resident right now is looking at it and they have some comments.
They can always comment on everything that we do. Yeah.
But if we start designing this by committee or by city, we will not have anything.
Oh no,
we will not.
Yeah, and I've been.
You can't please everyone.
Right, and I've been the party that sat there with the committee to design a logo. It's painful. It's painful. Yeah. It's beyond painful.
But we always welcome comments.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben and Joe.
Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to consent agenda. Excuse me. Consent agenda consists of the minutes of June 15th, the corrected minutes of June 22nd, the minutes of July 13th, and designation of surplus items from fire rescue with date correction noted in the document. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to unfinished business, that would be resolution FY22 meeting calendar.
Good evening again. The only change I made from the last meeting, remember we added those Saturday meetings for schools. If this is approved to have a joint school governing body meeting. The only one I added in green, just to kind of point it out, was the July 27th. If you wanted to meet on next week to further discuss ARPA budget. I put that out there for consideration. I know we talked about that before. How much time do we want to take on this? We have the meeting on August 3rd as well. You don't have to vote on ARPA right now. We can wait till September. It was just another option that was thrown out there. I can delete it if y'all want, but that's why I put it in green, because that was the only addition I made since the last time we presented this and we discussed it.
Sometimes it's good to accommodate it, and then we can always strike it later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Has everyone had the opportunity to look this over?
Yes.
Any comments?
I'm not showing it.
Okay. The staff recommendation is that the governing body review, edit, and adopt the FY22 meeting calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, the next item is a suggested amendment to the resolution passed by the governing body on June 1st, which formally created the Community Maintenance Working Group. For the folks at home, the stated purpose of the resolution is that the working group provide recommendations to address community maintenance issues and overall beautification of the city. As a part of this, it required membership from the three parts of the city: the west, the east, and the central. This item is a recommendation that the requirement be changed to preference. This change would provide greater flexibility needed to help fill out the committee membership. So with that, comments?
Yeah, from what I understand, is that we've had a problems locating people in the central and on the east side of the city. That we've had 2 people volunteer from the west.
We've had no one stand up from the central and the east side, despite outreach. Outreach was through the city website, through social media, phone calls to individuals, and we've had 2 people from the west side raise their hand.
Are we still accepting applications, even though it's past the deadline? Would we accept them?
I mean, if it's not improper, I say yes. There's a position that's open. You know, we've got 2 names.
Maybe we should extend the deadline and give it more time.
What was the deadline?
The deadline was July 6th. So if we extend the deadline, then we need to then also extend the 365 days.
That should start counting once the committee has been impaneled.
Yeah.
So according to the
time should start.
According to the resolution, it's from when we passed this, which was in end of June.
Well, I'm in favor of modifying that aspect of it, saying that the committee will start 365 days once it's impaneled. I'm not in favor of changing the makeup. I do believe it's important that we have diversity from the entire city, both central and on the east side. So I would be in favor of modifying the resolution to say once it's impaneled, the clock starts ticking for the 365 days.
And that's perfectly, I'm not against that.
Give more time.
I agree with that.
So I'd like to make that motion if that's appropriate.
I would, well, let's have a little bit more discussion.
Sure.
I would favor actually doing both, because we could extend the deadline and not have a resident step forward from either the east side or the central area. I mean, we could end up with, or we could have someone step forward from one of the 2 that have not so far stepped forward.
You give us some flexibility.
It would give us more flexibility.
Don't scare away people that have put their hands up in case we don't get any more individuals.
So I would actually favor doing both. And I understand, I totally agree it's important to have representation from across the city, but apparently there doesn't seem to be a sense of urgency. Not everyone feels the same sense of urgency that perhaps folks on the west or the central might feel.
It might also be summer. You know,
That's what I think.
Paying attention
I think that has a lot to do with summer and vacations and busy schedules.
Yeah.
Families are out of town.
Well, and essentially we're still a bedroom community too. People work hard, they drive to work, they come home, you know, do their family duties.
They have other civic obligations, perhaps.
Yeah, they do have other responsibilities. So we might not get what we're hoping to get for that. That's my only point. We might not get.
I mean, I guess the philosophy is what's best for the city, and what's best for the city is that we extend the time, we make the change in here so we can extend the time, and we allow the flexibility in case someone from the central or the east does, you know, the other parts of the city doesn't step up.
But that wouldn't give you the diversity we're looking for, though.
Right.
So I wouldn't feel comfortable changing the representation. Maybe add, if there's only 2 people from the west side that are showing up, maybe there's no interest, obviously, in the central and the east, but that would take away from the whole diversity and representation of the whole city.
So then my recommendation is that you all help me. You help me go out and recruit. Because I've reached out to people I know that helped me, you know, push the word out. I've reached out to residents that were affected by blighted homes on the west, the central, and the east. And this is what we got. And by social media, even put it on Nextdoor. So,
Yeah, so I think we should extend it and work a little harder trying to get the volunteers.
okay, then I need your all's help.
Favor changing it to preferably?
No, I would rather keep
just
it
the
diverse,
one-
yes.
Just the one day?
Yes.
What is the sense of the governing body? Vice Mayor Banks?
Yeah, let's do both.
Okay. Both or just the?
I think both, but my concern is with Councilmember Hampton's mention about how you've already used, it sounds like, all the avenues to reach out.
Right.
So we're going to have to each contact the citizens we know and reach out. We have to do our part to try to recruit from the east and central parts of the city.
So Councilmember Amaya is just the date.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Banks?
I want the date and the change that Councilmember Moore mentioned in terms of the 365 starting from the date that we've got all the numbers.
So, and did you want to also change preferably or not?
Could change preferably.
Okay, so both?
Yeah.
Okay. Councilmember Hampton?
I agree with Councilmember.
So that's both?
Thanks.
Okay, what is your preference?
I agree with Councilmember Moore, and I think we need to advertise it again because I think it's easy to get missed, especially over the summer.
Date, okay.
Date. I think we should extend the advertisement up until September when people get back from vacation. July and August is a horrible time to get people involved and engaged. And I think start now, but extend it at least through September.
Okay, so it's a tie.
Let's call Hasib.
Flip a coin. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I think, Councilmember Hampton, this is your committee.
So I will put it this way. If you guys, as the remainder of the committee, not the committee, but the remainder of the three of the school, not the school board, but of the city council members want to just change the date, then I'm gonna put you guys on the line and ask you to go out and reach and grab me some people. Because it's our city, we have to make the city look good. And it also affects everybody. One side, that couch that was sitting on the sidewalk for a week made this whole entire city look bad. So I need y'all's help.
Okay.
So I will hold you guys to it.
Okay. Okay, then date. Okay. Dean, what is your preferred change in wording?
All right, so we're not going to put preferably in there, so it's going to remain one each from the city's west side, central area, and east side. And then I have, 365 days following the appointment of its membership. Is that acceptable?
Okay. So, that the governing body approve the, how are we going to word that?
The motion would be to amend the resolution creating the community maintenance working group to.
You need the resolution number?
I don't have it.
It's 21-1000-2125.
21-1000-2125.
21-1000-2125.
Right. Okay, so that resolution.
That one.
That resolution be amended to add, to change the, it looks like the second full paragraph of the resolution, because the whereas paragraphs are not actually part of the resolution. So the second full paragraph that will read, be it further resolved that the working group will continue in existence until the earliest to occur of 1, 365 days following the appointment of its membership, or 2, termination of the working group by the governing body by a vote taken in a public meeting.
Okay, we have a motion?
Well, before we vote,
Yes.
just one comment to Councilmember Hampton. It's not just those of us who want to keep the diversity in the committee that should be working with you to find someone. It should be everyone on this dais. And so hopefully all of us will be trying to submit to you names of individuals to serve, not just those of us who want the diversity to be maintained.
Well, diversity is different things, right?
Well, I'm just saying the diversity we're talking about tonight in relationship to the division of the city, the central, the west, and the east side.
But I do need your help.
the help of everyone on this dais.
Yes.
I agree.
And that was my understanding when she said she wanted
Okay,
our
just
help,
wanted to
that it
clarify
was
that.
Yeah.
all of us. Yeah, okay. Okay, so did we get the motion in the second? Okay.
Do we have a motion?
You read the motion.
I read the motion.
Who moved? Who said, did
So
anyone
moved.
say so moved?
Preston.
moved.
So moved. Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Okay, item 9A is Latino Festival proposal.
Okay, good evening, members of the governing body. Tonight, the Parks and Rec Department will be presenting on a partnership opportunity between the city and the Consejo Ciudadano de Comunidades Salvadoreñas. They asked me to introduce it so I could pronounce it. I'm trying to get over to them. When we're done presenting, we will also turn over to Councilmember Maya if she wants to say a few words as well. She's the one who brought
I
the
actually
idea.
have a member here from the board.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay, good. So we'll do our presentation and we'll turn it over.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Caitlin Collier, and I'm a Special Events Work Specialist. And I will be referring to this as the organization for the remainder of this presentation. So these are the proposed event details. So the proposed date would be October 16th, 2021. The time, including setup and teardown, would be 10 a.m. to 8 a.m., but the actual event length would run from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. The location that we are suggesting would be Costello Park, and the anticipated vendor participation is 30 to 40 table vendors, as well as 4 to 5 food vendors. The event itself will be held rain or shine, and the cost is free to the public. So this is a map of the various areas of our suggested layout for the event. The red dotted lines are for customer parking. So as you can see, we have the entire front lot for customer parking, the entire rear lot, and the entire clinic lot, as well as the lots near the Stonehouse and right off of Old Centerville Road. And then the vendor table area is the big yellow square in the green field over there where there used to be baseball fields. Those fences are now taken down and it's now a cricket pitch. That would be our suggested vendor area. Our vendor parking would be the little parking lot across from the clinic parking where if you've ever gone to Costello Park, they have little Red Cross vehicles in that area. That way it has ease of access to the field for vendors, so that way they're not having to go all around Costello Park in order to get to their vehicles or to set up and everything. The entertainment stage is the orange rectangle at the behind the building over by, there's bleachers over there as well as the soccer field. That would be our suggested spot because it is close to power, as well as the yellow square, which is the veterans lot right across from the basketball courts over there. That would be our entertainment setup as well as our vendor setup. That way they have ease of access to the vendor stage as well as the tables. This would be our contribution. As stated, we are partnering with the organization. So we are providing a venue space, which would be Costello Park. We are providing some staffing, 1 full-time position, that would be me. And then we have 10 part-time, as well as 4 police department employees. And we also have added 3 fire department employees to help us set up parking, tear down, traffic control, as well as just general event support. And then additional marketing of the event as well. The organization contribution is to secure food as well as non-food vendors. They do charge fees ranging from $250 to $500, depending on the level. They do sort of like a bronze, silver, gold type of registration. Setup and tear down, logistics and operational support, such as securing tables and chairs, setting those up, registration, fiscal management, and overall event oversight. They'll be there the entire time for the 10 to 8 time frame. And to secure the entertainment as well as to include the sound system, stage, and everything else needed to make the entertainment go on that day, as well as their own marketing. So this would be the staffing model cost. So we set up to have 5 part-time staff from 10 to 3, and then 5 part-time staff from 3 to 8. And then from 10:30 to 5:30, we got with the police department, they would have 4 staff. And then the fire, EMS and fire marshal would be there as well from 10:30 to 5:30 for a total of $2,837. Potential revenue loss based off of numbers from October 16th in 2019 would be about $26.84 with building closure, not being able to have rentals, as well as drop-in. And then personnel savings due to that closure would be $1,165, as we wouldn't have to have any staff scheduled that day besides the part-time staff listed above, as well as myself. Net potential fiscal impact would be $4,356. And then we have questions.
Thank you. This is a great event. We need more family-oriented, family activity events just like this one. This is great. Thank you. Comments or questions from the governing body?
I have sorry. Go ahead.
How does the fee for the vendors compare to like events in the city of Manassas or neighboring?
We have different sponsorships that we actually have an event going on the 8th of August. And it's for Salvadorian Day, basically. And we have different vendor, different sponsorships. So it goes up to $5,000.
So it's the same. Oh, so it's less.
Yeah. No, it goes up to $5,000 per sponsorship if they want to do like the gold sponsorship.
Oh.
So for us, it's a lot less for now, unless the council wants to change it. But yeah, it can go up to a lot depending on what type of service they want to provide and what type of business it is. So we basically base it on the type of service and the type of business. So the sponsorships can change.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we're being pretty competitive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Hampton.
So our cost is $4,300 and change. So I have a question. I know that in the past over at Blooms Park, when that union comes in, do they have to pay a rental fee for that use of that land, use of the park?
The organization?
Back in that union, they used to would come over and rent Blooms Park for the day.
Electric workers.
Okay.
Yeah. That's sorry, Signal Hill Park.
The electrical union.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. Jay's putting
Okay.
thumbs up.
So are we charging folks for use of Costello Park for the all-day event?
This is a partnership, so from my understanding, we're not charging because this is a city event. It just so happens that we're actually partnering with someone.
So whatever profits we get goes back to the city.
So whatever, so that's where I'm getting kind of confused.
Yeah. This is a
So-
city event, so this is
Okay.
our event. It just happens that we're partnering with someone to help facilitate the event.
Okay.
It's just like in the future when we're going to do downtown events. This is exactly the type of event we're going to want to bring to the downtown, but the city's the one who's going to be sponsoring it. So it doesn't make sense to charge the organization
Okay.
you're partnering with. Yeah.
So do we have an idea of how many people might be coming to this event?
Normally about 60 to 70 vendors. So times 500.
Okay. And then how many like people from like just people that show up, attendance?
Do we know, Ruth?
Sure. So when we did it the first time at Manassas City, we were very surprised. It was the largest Latino event, we were told by Manassas City, because they had about 2,000 people.
Okay.
It was done in the pavilion. It was a really, really good event. So I think it goes back to the diversity and inclusion for Manassas Park. And at the same time, as I address you all, I want to, say that we appreciate the opportunity, because I really think that being with 30% of the Hispanic population in the city and being able to do something that identifies and brings, that identity, that community involvement, right? And another way where they can probably even get what you are looking for on the west side, right? And it's more of those volunteers and more of those people involved with the community events, and to become more aware of what's going on. So I think it's very exciting. I used to be a Manassas Park resident myself, so I think it's something that's going to bring value to the city.
Okay. So if we're talking 40, thank you. If we're talking 40 to 50 vendors times whatever the charge is, so then we actually may recoup that 4,300.
Yes. That's,
Okay.
That's
I'm sorry, but that just wasn't clear, so I needed to ask that.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
No, I think it's great. 2,000 people. I mean, that's amazing.
If I may say, on the first event we made, at our first event at the city of Manassas, we made a little bit over $5,000. And right now, we're doing our second event, and I think we are close to $10,000 this one.
Thank you.
Mayor, I don't think the people at home can hear her because she's not up at the podium.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
I can go to the podium, but you had one person there, so.
Councilmember Moore, did you?
No, I just wanted to, I think it's going to be a fantastic event. I'm extremely excited to, hopefully we'll break the record of Manassas and have even a larger crowd. And I just want to thank Councilmember Maya for spearheading and doing the work behind this, and just greatly appreciate all your efforts.
No, thank you for giving us the opportunity too. It's something that we value. We like to get the community together, and I think it's a great community here. So it will be something that showcase for our city. And since we're thinking about downtown, it's going to create a unity. So it's great. Thank you.
Good job.
Okay. If there's no further comments or questions, okay.
Point out, we did this at one time. We used to do this.
We did many years ago.
Yeah, it just got discontinued. That was around 2008, 7. It got discontinued.
Oh, when we.
Yeah. Economy tanked.
Well, and actually, if you go a little bit past that, back in the old 4th of July days, Parks and Recreation over at same place, Costello Park, and you had vendors. Granted, those vendors were the civic communities, but they paid money for the booths, and the money went back into the community. So it ties back into the tradition of Manassas Park, especially the west side.
Yeah. Good. That's good stuff. Staff recommendation is that the governing body authorize the Department of Parks and Recreation to partner with Consejo Ciudadano de Comunidades Salvadoreñas, Virginia, in hosting an annual Latino festival in Manassas Park starting October 2021, and direct the city manager to add $4,356 to the city's FY22 budget amendment in the fall to cover additional expenditures for city staff. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you for coming this evening. Thank you. Okay. And 9B is task order number 4 for Julius Branscombe Paving, Inc.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council, staff, citizens, guests. My name is Calvin Odell. I'm the Director of Community Development for the City of Manassas Park. Before you tonight is a paving agenda item. As you know, we use the services of Julius Branscombe, who was procured through the City of Manassas on a cooperative procurement clause. We are able to utilize them as a on-call paving vendor. This would actually represent task order number 4 under the current agreement with Julius Branscombe. Before you tonight are 2 segments of paving. One is Forest Street from Cabell to Price. And that was estimated in April to come out to around $48,459.60. That paving section has been shown in our windshield survey and our paving hotspots map as poor since 2017. It's continued to deteriorate. Also before you tonight is Colburn Drive from West Rugby to Lambert. Estimated in April at $110,644.40. That section of pavement has shown severe alligator cracking throughout since 2017. In 2017, there were anywhere from 15 to 20 major utility patches and street repairs that had already been performed there. What we've seen since 2017 is further alligatoring of the pavement. We've had some major water breaks, especially on the Rugby end, that have caused more patching out there, and some of our previous pavement repairs have already started to fail themselves. The section is in really poor condition, and that has become a staff recommendation. We feel as though at this point, if we continue to let the pavement deteriorate, that we're going to start losing the sub-base below the actual base course, is what we've sort of been observing over the past couple years, looking very similar to Upper Kent, which we neglected for too long, and we've had to actually do some full depth restoration out there. So altogether, these 2 sections were estimated at $159,104. but we would like to carry the usual 20% contingency because these paving estimates are just that, they're estimates, but we're dealing with weighted quantities and we never know until we actually get out there how much we're gonna have to mill and resurface off of certain sections. So the 20% contingency would bring this up to $190,924.80 as the do not exceed amount. So the intended source of funding for this is the street improvements and resealing line from the capital budget. That line is funded at $269,222.66 for this year. That would leave approximately $90,000 on the table for us to allocate in the spring. I'm really excited that we're getting some agenda items before you early because we always wind up playing this game in the spring where we want to spend every penny we have, but we wait for the plants to reopen and then we try to do some pavement really quick when everybody is competing for Branscom's attention. But doing it this way, you know, we get a vast majority of the expenditure early this summer, and then we have a much better chance of maximizing our expenditures in the spring. So staff recommendation is that you approve task order number 4 with Julius Branscom, and the estimate of $159,104, but with a do not exceed amount after that 20% contingency of $190,924.80. Any questions?
Comments or questions?
Just a quick question. When's the estimated timeline to do the paving?
Once we get the governing body's approval to move forward with the task order, we try to get on Branscom's schedule as quickly as possible. I'm sure right now that they're juggling around, especially with the recent heat wave. They've probably got some delayed work, but hopefully within the next 2 to 3 weeks, they would be able to get us on their schedule. Again, on these smaller residential streets, we also have to coordinate with, you know, letting the residents know and arranging parking and traffic coordination during the actual resurfacing. So we'll all get at the table together and decide when we can actually execute these repairs with the least amount of impact on the citizens. So hopefully within the next 2 to 3 weeks after approval.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? No? Okay. Councilmember Moore?
No question.
Comment?
No, thank you.
Okay. Staff recommendation is that the governing body approve task order number 4 with Julius Branscom, Inc. for a contract price of $159,104, together with a contingency of $31,820.80 for a not-to-exceed amount total of $190,924.80 as presented, and direct the city manager to sign the task order number 4, subject to final review by city attorney.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you, Calvin. Much appreciated.
We also just quickly wanted to introduce you to our new transportation program manager as well, so you can.
Oh, okay.
Tremendous.
Awesome.
Yeah, why don't you come on up, Calvin, you want to introduce
Nice.
Yes.
Good evening again, everyone. I am very pleased to introduce Steve Hall. It was a nice recruitment process. We had a lot of quality candidates, but Mr. Hall has quite a resume, and we were very excited to have an opportunity to bring him on board. And with that, I'd like to give Steve the mic so he can say hi and introduce himself.
Thank you, Calvin.
Welcome.
Madam Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of the body, welcome. I'm so glad to be here. Appreciate the opportunity to come to Manassas Park, display my skills. As Calvin mentioned, my resume consists of about 15 years, all in local government. Started my career outside the Philadelphia area. Most recently, I've been in Prince William County for about 8 years, working in land development. So I see a lot of opportunity here in Manassas Park. Lots of transportation projects coming down the pike. Already had a chance to work on Connor Drive project. Was able to put this agenda item together for you. So we want to look forward to keep things moving, utilize a lot of the transportation funding that we have as soon as we can, but also get involved with our regional boards, committees, make sure Manassas Park is represented well. So really grateful for the opportunity, and I look forward to it.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for choosing to come and be with us.
Yes.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay. Okay, item 9C, we have our Commissioner of Revenue who will speak to us about refund of taxpayer payment.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Thank you. We have a process we call a desk audit. When a business gets their business license, a year later we ask for their tax return. Sometimes we don't get it right away and it goes into a second year. In the case of this business, which I don't want to mention names or figures, if you all have questions about it, you can email me or talk to me at another time. But we match up what they have filed for their business license on the gross receipts. We also take it and see what business equipment that they have on their tax return. The asset list is fine. Most people will give us that to start with. But on your tax return, you also have expensed items. This particular business had a large expensed item that said equipment. So we billed on that equipment. Come to find out later on, they said that was equipment rental, which is not taxable. So they are looking for a refund. And I'm told that you all have to approve anything that's over $5,000. So and I know Dean and I have been working with 2 attorneys with this company, and Dean can probably say some.
Well, I think that
what it comes down to.
For tonight's purposes, you just need authorization to refund up to $72,000, right? Which I think is the amount that their bill is. So I don't think she's finalized the exact number yet.
No, I was waiting.
Right.
I've still got to get a couple explanations.
But they've asked for the full refund. Debbie has indicated that that's not going to happen. But because they've asked for it, the request is that you authorize her to refund the full amount, or the amount that she sees fit, or I guess refund what she has determined is the correct amount up to the full amount that they've paid. Because it was actually, I think it was a bank lien, right, that we got the money?
We went through TACS and they did a bank lien.
So they were surprised that this money came out of their account, and that's when they hired attorneys to figure out what was going on. So they've asked for the full refund. And so, as I said, the request would be that the governing body authorize Debbie to refund the amount she determines is correct up to the full amount that was taken from their bank account.
Questions or comments? You look puzzled.
I do have a question. It's about the form, because obviously if the property is rented, it doesn't count towards their taxes. Does the form say don't include? How did they do that?
They didn't provide any information. That's the problem. She had to determine this based on
the fact when they provided.
She had to use their income tax returns to get this. So
that's how you got the list of their assets.
Yes.
Gotcha. I see. So, okay. That was my question.
Yeah, ordinarily they would provide the correct number, but they didn't provide anything, so she had to go with the best information she had.
So it was listed incorrectly in the tax return?
Excuse me?
It was listed incorrectly in the tax return, or just in the?
It was listed as equipment instead of as rental equipment. Some of it was diesel fuel and different things moving. They had all lumped together and just called the category equipment.
Quick question.
Okay.
So, what is the reason for them not receiving or able to receive a full refund?
Because some of the items that's on that are taxable.
Got it. Thank you. That's all.
So you'll be refunding part of that amount. You just don't know which part. Okay.
Probably a substantial portion of it, though.
Okay.
Like maybe 60 or?
Yeah, I think at least 50,000, right?
Okay.
Yeah, at least 50,000.
Understood.
How will this affect our income? I mean, I know as far as income goes, it's small, and when you look at the grand total of the city income, but.
Well, this was found money, though, because they hadn't filed a business return. So this was money that we got.
Okay, so there's really no impact. It's like almost a wash.
Yeah, I mean, it's not money that, I mean, this is money that her office went out and got because they hadn't filed the return. So again, it's found money, so we'll be returning a portion of that found money.
Okay, thank you.
So if there were taxable items on that line item that they had lumped in with the rental part, why are they fighting for full refund if they're just going to get the rental part of it?
They seem to think that all of the items that they've listed are not taxable.
Okay.
Just one quick follow-up to Dean. What's the urgency of us giving this approval up to 75? Couldn't we wait until it's determined the exact amount, the calculations have been done, and then come back to us in September or August?
Well, I will tell you only that they are very anxious. This has been going on for a while. Debbie's office has been extremely busy. She's been working late every night trying to get this and many other things done. So the sooner we can get this behind us, the better. And, you know, they, like I said, they have an attorney that believes their position is the correct one, and they've indicated they're going to file a lawsuit against us if we don't resolve this quickly.
Okay.
So there is a little bit of urgency here.
I don't really see a problem approving it up to. Yeah, I don't see a problem. Any other comments or
But
questions?
if I can just add for Councilmember Hampton, so if this revenue is refunded, so whatever we collected in BPOL in FY21, it looks like it's going to hit 21, it's going to be a reversal of that amount of revenue. So there's going to be some kind of, but in reality, if that...
Business personal property, not.
Oh, on the personal property. Okay, so the personal property tax revenues then would go down by that much.
Okay. So there is a slight impact.
Yeah, it's going to be correct.
And if you all have other questions, email me and I'll be glad to answer. Okay? Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Debbie. So you do need action this evening. So do you
Yes.
want to read the motion, please?
The motion would be to authorize the Commissioner of the Revenue to refund the amount determined to be, or the amount she determines is appropriate up to the full amount that was taken by the bank lien.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, our next item is ratification of a letter sent to the Transportation Planning Board supporting restoration of a project to the TPB project list that had been removed from that list. The project is the Maryland portion of the 495-270 Express Lane project. Because of the large number of comments that were rolling into the TPB, it was better to send the letter sooner rather than later, because the TPB meets tomorrow from noon to 2 p.m. So with a general consensus of the governing body, the letter was sent on behalf of the city instead of on behalf of myself alone. And I was perfectly happy to send it just from myself as a sitting representative on the TPB. The two agenda cover sheets explain the reasons that the project should be placed back on the list. There was incomplete information circulated about the factors that were affecting greenhouse gas emissions. And also the removal of the project directly affects Northern Virginia because of the need for maintenance and replacement of the American Legion Bridge. And we all know that bridge has become a real choke point for traffic. So with that, comments?
I'm happy to support it.
Okay. Well, thank you, folks. Much appreciated. I don't like to do it this way, but because the meeting is tomorrow from noon to 2, and the emails kept rolling in. I received, as of when I wrote this, I had received over 800. I'm now over 1,000.
Oh, wow.
And they were clogging up my inbox. I had to create a special folder and move all of those emails into the folder. That's how I know how many I have, because
Oh, my goodness.
it has the little number there.
Yes,
you know. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So it was a lot. Okay, so the motion is that the governing body ratify the letter sent by the mayor on behalf of the governing body to the chair of the National Capital Region Transportation Planning Board in support of reconsideration of the removal of the I-495, I-270 Express Lane project from the air quality conformity analysis as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion. Oh, you abstain, okay. One abstention, Lena, that's Councilmember Moore. Okay, implementation roadmap for governing body priorities, and that's Laszlo.
Good evening again, members of the governing body. Just as a reminder to the members of the public, the governing body did hold a retreat back in February of this year where the governing body discussed heavily kind of what the priorities should be for the city. We came up with a lot of things. They were ranked. And then we ended up with these 6 and then kind of the different components within these. We followed up the meeting after and discussed it even further about the subcomponents as well. So that's how we came up with this list. We know there's probably other things that people want to also accomplish, but we're trying to kind of do our best to prioritize. And then back then I did promise, I believe this was back in March, that I would come back with kind of an implementation roadmap for each of these components, 1A, 1B, 1C, et cetera, all the way down to 6, Bravo on the bottom there, just giving kind of a timeline over the next 4 years, including 2021, of what we would like to accomplish. Some of these things we've already done, and it's not set, so just because something says 2024 doesn't mean we're not going to try to knock it out before then. And likewise, if something says 2022, we don't hit it by 2022, we're still going to continue to work on it and try to knock it out. So tonight I have the implementation roadmap, and I leave it up to you in terms of how much detail you'd want me to go in. Do you want me to go over point by point? Do you want to just open it up for any questions since you saw this over the weekend? I'm able to do any of the two. Do you want me to go point by point for these, or do you just want me to just answer any questions?
I thought this was really well done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought it was very organized, very well done. Why don't we see if there's any questions first, and then did everyone have the opportunity to look this over?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have questions?
I do.
Yes.
No, I was going to wait.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Excellent. I love the way it's laid out. It's very self-explanatory, and I love the fact that we're putting years behind the accomplishments for our priorities. But help me understand, do these priorities or these years match the ARP dollars? How are the ARP dollars and these priorities meshed?
Yeah. For ARPA, we have to obligate all ARPA funds by December 31st, 2024. So that's the end of this. However, we can also continue to spend up until December 31st, 2026, but the project already has to begin. So they understand, like, for example, the ERP,
Yes.
right? There may be some delays. And
Sure.
as long as we've already started the project, the governing body's already approved the budget for that project, they allow us to continue to cut checks utilizing those revenues until December 31st, 2026. So the ARPA covers this entire period.
And that's factored into your time, the ARPA funds being used to accomplish these goals.
We could potentially speed it up. There were some things that came. I was developing this before.
That's what I thought. This is before.
Correct. So
that was my question.
Yeah, this should be a living document, right? Like, it's not good to constantly change your priorities, but in terms of roadmaps and timing and things like that, we should revisit this every year before the budget. Right? We should sit down and go extensively over it and see what have we accomplished, like I did last time with kind of the check marks. What do we want to modify?
Well, just for me, and just for my colleagues' sake, one of the things that came out in the survey by the branding folks was higher taxes.
Yeah.
And as I was running for office, that was the number one thing I heard from constituents out of anything that we do here as a city, is that we have too high of taxes. And I know we have on the priority number 2, the number one thing, tax cuts. Can that ARP money be used to reduce at a higher, faster pace than what we have listed on this sheet?
No, it cannot. So the restrictions for ARPA that the Congress made very clear was you cannot use this for tax rate reductions. You can't use it for, now there's a debate on whether that only applies to states versus localities.
Okay, that's an important one. That's an important one.
I don't want to test that debate. But you're not supposed to be using it for tax cuts. You're not supposed to be using it to build up your pension plans for your employees.
Sure. Right.
You're not supposed to be using it to put in reserves. They want us to spend this money and get the economy going. So
Absolutely.
they specifically call that out. And there's a fourth one that I forget, but I think it's in the document. But if I recall again, pension, tax cuts, reserves. Debt. Thank you very much, Tony. So we can't use it to pay down our debt. So that's directly. Now, clearly your financial position is going to be improving, right? But whatever tax cut, that's why I don't want to change this language, because I believe tax reduction should be, our plan was based off assessment growth, right? And so I wouldn't want to be called into question that we're using this money, fungible money to reduce our taxes. As long as we can justify that we're spending, though, I think on ARPA eligible things and our financial position is improved, then indirectly there may be opportunities.
Absolutely.
We have to avoid even the perception that we are going to do that.
And that's fine, that's good. But our assessments went up significantly this year, and they may go up next year.
Right.
So my only thing that I'm going to throw out, and we don't have to necessarily do it tonight or whatever, is that we look at speeding this up or increasing the reduction. Instead of 1 cent, maybe in 2022 and 23, we could do 2 cents instead. But doing more to reduce taxes, because that is the number one complaint that I've heard from citizens in Manassas Park, is that we pay too higher taxes.
We could, that's your all's discretion.
It could be based on assessments, the increase in assessment.
Yeah, and that's what I did there. So if it grows greater than 3%, right, then it can be more. I put that language in there, but so we're gonna have to kind of crunch the numbers and see, well, how much more? And all that's really gonna depend on the downtown.
Because this year it grew by like, what, 6%, 7%? 7%.
Correct, yeah. Yep. But again, so yes, this year it grew greater, right? We weren't planning on starting tax cuts until FY23.
I know.
So this metric wasn't even there, right? It was just, but it grew so much that it enabled us to do a 2 cent reduction. And the goal was to start in FY23. So if things continue to grow at a faster pace, then we have a greater and greater opportunity to do so. The only thing I want to caveat again is if you look at the Q&A document that I sent you about city spending levels in 2008 prior to the crash, and the fact, like, for example, Calvin's department, we're spending less on his department today per dollar basis, not adjusting for inflation, than we did back then, right? So like the city's still playing catch up, and I get we want to be aggressive. It's just, I always try to balance those things, that we're still trying to play catch up from the pre-2008 levels, but also we are taking this serious. That's why, even though we didn't even plan to do any tax reductions in 22, because assessments grew so strongly and because it's such a big priority, we did put it in the budget to get it done. So that's why I put that caveat there about the 3%. If it's more than 3%, then let's always try to do more. Yeah.
I think your wording is fine. I think there are so many needs in the city. We've gone so long without doing what we need to do that we're trying to do a little bit of everything.
And of course, it's going to depend on the downtown, what kind of business mixes we're going to have. Right, higher yielding businesses will of course allow us to speed up the process for
absolutely
for tax
that's important
as well.
Yeah,
right.
Businesses.
Did you have a follow-up on that?
Good.
No. Okay. Any questions or comments, Councilmember Hampton? Did you have something?
It was pretty. I mean, to me, it was pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Super. I don't want to waste your time going point by point.
No,
don't do that.
And last, I got one question.
Yeah.
Apparently, we were good doobies and we did our homework.
1B for 2021, the higher economic development coordinator.
Yeah, that's one of the ones I moved up.
Yeah.
So when I did this a couple months ago, I had an FY23. When ARPA came out, I was like, you know what? I think we need to do a little bit more for.
That's a smart move.
Yeah.
And my question is, are you willing to be flexible and possibly outsource it, or do you want an in-house person?
We already outsourced the support, right? So we use Mr. Quinn Reynolds and Stephanie Reynolds for HGIS, and they do an incredible job. They have done an incredible job, but we do need kind of that staff component that we can direct on a day-to-day basis for different functions. So no, I'm not opposed to it, but we already do that from a retail recruitment standpoint. We certainly want to outsource different things like consulting reports for like grocers, right? For how we not only build out the grocery here in the downtown if we're able to attract one, but also on the other side of the city in Kent Village Square. What's the viability of a small Hispanic grocer in that area as well, right? And what's the business plan for that? Industrial redevelopment. There's a lot of opportunities with ARPA money to utilize for consulting reports, but it's definitely easier to have a staff member that's their sole focus. Chris will help me out sometimes, but his priority focus is on really the IT project management side, and we're about to have a lot more with ARPA as well. So it's not something we can dedicate ourselves to full-time, but I would like to have a full-time partner to constantly work with HGIS to ensure that we're getting this done right, and even beyond the downtown. I still need to be involved in those negotiations, but the day-to-day work, we really could use that extra help.
Thanks.
Quick question about the Econ Development Coordinator. Will that person's salary be paid with the ARPA money?
That's what I'll be proposing, yes, tonight.
Okay, so my question is, what happens when the ARPA money sunsets?
Yeah, so with these positions, so if you look at the 10-year model for the FY22 budget, you'll see that the Economic Development Coordinator was put in, I believe, in FY24. So this money, again, runs out in FY25. So we get to pay this person using ARPA money, and when that money runs out, it's already in the budget. And that's what I'm explaining also with pay raises as well. I'm using ARPA budget to kind of fund things that are already in the budget when that money runs out. We're just starting them sooner, with a few exceptions, and I'll go over what those are tonight, mainly in healthcare and housing. Those are the two exceptions that we'll talk about.
So the budgeted money will kick in when the ARPA.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
The budget will grow to the point where it can afford to take on that responsibility. Okay.
And one last question, I'm sorry. That presentation that really opened my eyes about the Latino Festival. Will this Economic Development Coordinator work for Parks and Rec in terms of like events and bringing people to our downtown area?
They have to partner together to establish an events portfolio, which I believe, as you see, 1B to 2024. We have to probably do that sooner, but that's really when our businesses, our theater is going to be here. Everything will be here. To get town centers to be successful, you have to do a lot of events, concerts, other things like that. And so that it is an economic development strategy, and it's also a quality of life community amenity as well. So Parks and Rec and the Economic Development Coordinator would be partners in that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other comments before we move on? Okay. Are we going to need a recess break before we begin this, or? No, I mean, how long do you anticipate your?
I'm not sure. I don't think this will be as long as a normal budget. We provide a lot of information, and I'll go over kind of how to read. That's why I put up the 27th as an option there, because there's a lot of information to go over. But so I can't predict how long I'm going to go. I didn't look over. Sometimes I like to go over stuff and kind of just see how, but I didn't have time to kind of go over this and see how long.
I think we should be fine unless someone specifically wants to. Okay, we're good. Go for it.
Great, excellent. I'm not going to rush through this because of the NBA finals, so I will take my time. As much as I want to watch the game. So, good evening again. This is an exciting presentation of the American Rescue Plan Act spending plan. This is a game changer for the city. We've been blessed to get this support, and now we have the difficult task of figuring out where exactly do we want to concentrate this money, and balancing our priorities, balancing also what the intent was of Congress when they approved this, and what they really want communities across the country to do as well. And that's what I try to do tonight in my recommended budget, is try to balance all those different components as well. So tonight I'll go over just a rehash of how much revenue we got, what the framework is that Congress established for how they want us to utilize this money. And then I present the budget in a few different ways for different reasons. So the base way, of course, is the spending plan that has the fiscal years and by departments, because that allows us to just incorporate it into our budget. I also present it based off a line to these priorities that we just talked about, so you can see how much dollars are being spent to support those priorities. And then lastly, in front of you, I did provide a couple handouts that show it aligned based off of the expenditure categories that were established. You have two handouts because the one that's stapled is the full menu of options, and the one that's a single sheet, that's the city manager recommended balanced budget exactly. So those are the three different views to look at the budget. That view there, that handout, that's what our finance department will be sending back to the federal treasury on a regular basis and the Commonwealth of Virginia for how we're spending the money. When they're going to ask for the reports, they're going to want to look at that document, the spending plan by department fiscal years, how we'll incorporate it into the budget, and then I also will always show you kind of how this is aligning towards supporting our priorities as well. Again, so I'll show kind of how this aligns with our priorities. Not everything is kind of straightforward. Some things are kind of secondary in terms of support. There wasn't kind of a easy answer for some of these as well, but I did my best to try to align it to our priorities as well. And beyond that, then I went ahead and provided my own recommended budget and priorities for how to think about this as well, and I'll present that. And then I'll open up the 2 Excel files and walk you through those. They're not as big as our normal standard budget 10-year model, but they do have some useful information there as well. Going over the revenue piece, we got $21.5 million now confirmed, half of which is in our bank account now. So we received our county, quote unquote, county share, since we're an independent city, from the federal government directly back in May, $1.6 million. And then $9 million we got at the end of the month of June from the state, which acted as a pass-through. So the federal government gave to all the states across the country to deliver to jurisdictions that were under 50,000 in population, and to play kind of an extra supervisory role, if you will, to kind of oversee that money and demand reporting and things like that as well. So we received half the money in May and June of 2021. We'll receive the remaining half in May and June of 2022. There's one caveat to the June of 2022. It may be that we get slightly more than that, so if jurisdictions reject the money, right, the non-entitlement funds. I don't know why they would, but if some do, then that goes back into the pool that then gets spread, divided, and provided to all the jurisdictions. So that is that one caveat there, that it might be slightly higher than that $9 million shown there for June 2022. And then another note is that we are allowed to put this into interest-bearing accounts, savings accounts to generate interest off of. And surprisingly, that interest money doesn't have to be spent on ARPA priorities. But what I'm going to argue tonight is that this interest money and the revenue loss that they allow us to calculate, that we do try to spend that on ARPA money as an audit cushion. And I'll explain what that means in the next slide here. These are the 4 categories that Congress came up with, and category 3 really isn't an expenditure item, but it was a big part of what Congress wanted to accomplish to help us with our revenue losses due to COVID. But you can see there, the number one issue they want us to do is respond to the public health and negative economic impacts from the pandemic. And when they say public health, they don't just mean coronavirus or COVID-19 and physical health. They also do a big emphasis on mental health as well. So that's part of that rubric of public health there. And when they say negative economic impacts, they're not just saying businesses, right, and the actual damage to the economy. They're talking also about negative impacts to households. They're also talking about increasing crime and supporting your police. Just the president last week urged communities across the country to spend this money to help law enforcement with reducing crime. So this is kind of the intent of the federal government, is that beyond, even though it says negative economic impacts, they define that pretty broadly, but that's kind of the number one category that they came up with. Number 2, they wanted us to help to do pay raises for the workers who've been working during the pandemic. So we never shut down, right? We had to keep going. Police, fire, everyone else kept working through the pandemic, and Congress wanted us to make sure that we were paying our employees for the essential work that they were doing. We have the flexibility to kind of define what essential workers are, but they do provide guidelines in the document, and we can glean from the document they really don't want us to provide this to like deputy directors, city managers. They really want this money going to the frontline workers. And it's not just this time police and fire and DSS and Parks and Rec like last time. They also talk about employees who work in infrastructure, like our Public Works Department. They also talk about employees who are directly engaging with customers on a regular basis, which includes our permitting office, commissioner, treasurer, voter registrar. So it's very expansive, but again, it's not intended for leadership. Just like for CARES Act, they did not want CEOs to get additional pay bonuses or anything like that from the CARES Act. That's the same thing here. They really don't want us, providing this to kind of higher level workers, but trying to get it out to our essential employees. Reduction in revenues due to COVID, that's to recognize that there was an economic impact and that local governments across the country felt that. And then they specifically called out for infrastructure, water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. It does not include transportation. I think that's probably going to be a component of the infrastructure bill that they're going to be looking at. But for this purpose, we can use it for water and sewer and theoretically broadband as well, if that's somewhere we want to take this. So responding to number 1 there, we've identified almost a full budget worth amount of eligible ARPA spending that we came up with over the last few weeks. Again, that's not what we're recommending to spend. That's just the kind of the menu of options that we came up for: public health, mental health, support to households, housing, economic impacts, and support to law enforcement as well. Pay raises, so this is the interesting one that I know I'll get questions on and how it's supported by the budget, but I've identified about $2.1 million in eligible spending. It could be slightly higher, but that would require us to start now, and that could be tricky from a financial standpoint. But what I'm proposing is starting July 1st, 2022, so FY23, $853,000 applied to those frontline workers in terms of pay raises. And what that is doing is I took what people's pay, our frontline workers' pay would be in July 1st of 2024, which is fiscal year 25, and we're moving that up 2 years. So essentially, the raises that would have been accumulated, we're just front loading it. And that would help us to reward our employees, help with retention issues as well. But it's already built into the budget. So when we get to FY25, and actually even in FY25, half the fiscal year is also covered by ARPA. So just the second half of the fiscal year that we have. So that's, and you'll see later on that frees up some additional money as well. And we know we're gonna need that additional money because in 3 years, we know that every other jurisdiction is gonna continue to do pay raises, and we have to kind of keep up with that as well. But this will help us at least tackle that issue. Reduction in revenues. Luckily with this one, the treasurer provided a model for a formula for how to do this, and they worked with the GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association, that our CFO Pond is a part of, to develop kind of a model, a calculating tool for how to figure this out. What are the assumptions you can use? What are you looking for in your audit to pull the numbers? So Pond calculated in calendar year 2020 about $2 million in revenue losses. This isn't just what money you actually lost, but they allow you to forecast what you should have had the economy not tanked, right? What you would have had at that point. And you get to calculate this each year. This is subject to change. So the $2 million that fits the model, the calendar year 2020 is already over. We'll be able to calculate this each year, 2021, 2022, 23, 24. So we're calculating roughly about a total of $11 million per how the federal government defines revenue losses that we are able to count. And what this does is it frees you up to spend this money, not to put in reserves. They say they don't want you putting in reserves. They want you to spend it on governmental services. What I'm arguing is that this $11 million and the interest, what that is an audit cushion, right? We have $21 million, and over half of that now is going to be cushioned by the fact that we have more flexibility because of this revenue loss. So if we're getting audited in 2026 and the federal government disagrees with X, Y, Z that we did in our budget, okay, move that over to this category because there's a specific category in this that's from revenue losses, and that doesn't have to meet all the ARPA regulations. So it's kind of a half of your ARPA spending doesn't necessarily have to fit all the ARPA regulations. So it gives us a lot of flexibility to make errors if we do, and then the federal government disagree with the things that we're doing, right? It covers kind of half of that. We don't have to do that. That's my recommendation to make sure that if we do get audited, we don't have to give back any money.
Right.
Water and sewer, this is where we have the most money, of course. Calvin and Alan had a great time looking at everything that they could do with this project, but you can see how much were identified. And this isn't just water and sewer. They define the water component. Yes.
Question, do we know if we can purchase nutrient credits with this?
We'll have to look into. I haven't seen that as one of the, but Calvin, I don't think can you use federal grants, stormwater grants to buy nutrient credits?
I'm not really sure how the EPA's their current stance on nutrient credits. I know Virginia's been looking at sort of dialing back the opportunity to use nutrient.
Can you start again so the folks at home can hear?
Yeah, I'm not really certain that the EPA has a very strong opinion of nutrient purchases for TMDL reduction credits, if that's what we're referring to.
I am.
Virginia there's been hints that perhaps Virginia was going to dial back the ability for municipalities or put restrictions on the ability for municipalities to use nutrient reduction or nutrient credits for the TMDL reduction. So far that hasn't happened, and in some discussions we've had with some people that deal with these things on a regular basis, they don't feel like there's going to be any fast advance of that legislation or those policy changes, but I'm not sure that the EPA is really fond of nutrient credit purchases for TMDL reductions. Again, though, we're dealing primarily with the Bay Act, and we're dealing primarily with just the jurisdictions around Washington, D.C., so I'm not really sure what the total opinion of Congress is on that kind of thing, but I would think, as long as we stay the course and we look to continue our Russia Branch stream restoration project, we shouldn't have any trouble achieving our actual TMDL reductions without the purchase of credits. So right now, we're not steering towards nutrient credit purchase as much as we are looking at the opportunities we have through Russia Branch stream restoration, possibly a couple more pond projects to pick up on the leftovers from the Russia Branch stream restoration, but we're not focused at this point on nutrient purchase.
Right, and the reason I asked, I had recalled that it must be a couple years ago now that when there was the possibility to purchase a device, much like the filtration device up on Manassas Drive, the decision was made to do nutrient credits instead because the maintenance costs on the device.
Right, and that's always a consideration, and that's why we have steered clear of the bioretention that we once had planned. That's why we've steered clear of manufactured treatment. But we're looking at opportunities essentially that limits our maintenance for at least 10 years out, 15 years out. And stream restoration is one of those things that, yes, there would be a long-term maintenance component, but we're looking to minimize those maintenance costs at least in the 10 to 15-year term. But, like I said, we have not failed to have the discussion on nutrient credits. It's just we're looking for opportunities to do this in a more affordable manner than just flat out purchasing nutrient credits and weighing the long-term maintenance responsibilities with that. So at this point in time, I haven't really looked into the ARPA money as far as nutrient credit, but it's an excellent point. It's something that we should consider because, again, zero maintenance is good.
Yeah. Thank you, Calvin.
We can look at the federal grants because it tries to align itself with federal grants on water, sewer, and stormwater. So if those allow it, theoretically this could. But however, the one caution I would have is that the legislators, they want us to spend this money on actual water improvement or remediation. So buying nutrients doesn't necessarily do that. It's just kind of giving yourself credit, but it's not actually doing the work.
Yeah.
So I think that would be my one caution.
Our intent,
Correct.
Of course.
Now again, we had $11 million, which if they did say, hey, guess what? We don't agree with you doing nutrient credits. We wanted you to actually, we have the $11 million to fall back on and say, okay, we're just shifting that to that.
Yeah, okay. I have another question. I think I know the answer to this already, but I want to ask it anyway. For some time, the city has been hoping to get into solar energy, solar production. Would ARPA funds get us any closer to that goal in any way?
They don't talk a lot about environmental initiatives in ARPA. It was something we did look at as well. I'm guessing that's going to be part of the infrastructure bill, but this really didn't get into that. It really focused purely on water, sewer, and broadband.
Okay, so maybe the solar will be covered under
that's what I would
infrastructure.
guess,
Okay, okay.
That's
Thank
probably
you.
where we're going to get into more electrical and transportation infrastructure.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so again, a note on pay raise. I've already kind of described what the process was. The goal is to reduce 75% of the current pay gap with our neighbors by utilizing this funding. That was the plan to get to that point by FY25 and then completely close the gap by FY26. And as a reminder with that bullet 3, we can't use this, or we should only use this for frontline workers, not directors and deputy directors, and also not central departments. So the office of city manager, finance, IT, HR, and then those employees who are doing kind of more general services functions. I didn't get the feel from reading the document that would be necessarily looked kindly upon if we did that. The good news is, again, we've already budgeted for pay increases in FY23 and FY24. What we have in the budget for those pay increases is more than enough to cover those employees who are left out of the ARPA. And that's all that table shows. So in FY23, we programmed in already in the model $568,000 for pay raises, right? The annual across the board plus kind of closing 25% of the pay gap. That was already budgeted in. We don't have to use that whole thing now because we're using ARPA money for the majority of our employees. The non-ARPA raises for those central departments and the deputies and directors is at $346,000. I also put in there the benefits, right? We're only covering the salary. Even though you're allowed to cover salary and benefits, there's kind of a cap per employee. So we plan on using city money for the benefits and the ARPA money for the salary increases. But you can see we end up with a net remaining surplus of $70,000 from what we were planning on doing with pay raises and what we're actually able to accomplish. And that's accomplishing FY25 goals and FY23 and having a surplus of $70,000. So that's exciting. So menu of options. So the first budget we present is $54 million. We don't have $54 million. We have $21 million, but there's a reason why we went ahead and showed the entire $54 million, because again, we want to provide you with options, to kind of pick and choose what you really want to accomplish with this funding. So we kind of lay out all those different options for, I think it is kind of the menu for you to select from. A reminder, with CARES Act, we had a budget and then things came under budget or some things didn't work out, like the support for rent and mortgage. We just didn't have a lot of people apply for that, and we had budgeted a couple $100,000. Then we had a couple $100,000 that we weren't spending and time was running out, so we had to shift it. So it's good to have a list of options to fall back to in case certain things don't work out like we plan, or things come under budget as well. We can fall back to now a kind of a list of items that we've already documented. Plus, the money we're getting, that's not it for ARPA. The state's getting over $4 billion as well, and they're going to be looking to spend that money, and we're going to be looking to apply to get some of that money as well from the state on different projects. So, and you'll see in the reductions that I did in the city manager budget, a lot of those were on kind of the infrastructure projects, because there's going to be more federal and state money for those, where there won't be for some of the other things that I kept in there. So I kind of try to be strategic. And one of those things that I think we can go ahead and apply for state money and federal grants for, that I think we have a good chance of getting, one of those things that we don't. One example is healthcare. We did apply for a healthcare grant to help us out with our COVID-19 response and actually get healthcare professionals. We were turned down by the federal government. It's a hard thing to do, right? But there are plenty of transportation. Well, transportation is not covered in here, but water, sewer, stormwater, things that we have a good feeling about as we start applying for them at the federal and then also at the state level with their $4 billion as well. So now we'll have that list of targeted projects that we can get together and really go after additional money for, to really maximize that $21 million and try to grow that even further. So when you lay out that $54 million in the traditional way that we budget, it looks like this. I'll start off with the revenue category. So I broke out the county share versus the non-entitlement unit share to get the full $21 million. Other ARPA revenue, I keep that there just in case we do get some of the more additional state ARPA money like we did with CARES Act. Carryover, so whatever we don't spend in the years that we get the money, we carry it over to the next year. So ideally your net income surplus deficit at the end should zero out. You can see here we're going negative, right, because of the total is negative $32 million. So we're spending a lot more than what we have under this plan. And then again, this is our best chance, or first crack at forecasting interest generated from this as well. Additional almost $300,000 just in interest revenue. And then we apply these to each of the departments. And so city manager and economic development, that's not all city manager. Don't freak out that I'm giving all the money to my department. It's over half of that is for economic development recovery. And then this is where the across the board, the pay raises are as well, and all the frontline workers. So the city manager portion is not actually that big, but those are two big items that are housed centrally. All of these categories you see fit into our normal budget, but I do call out this new one, health and housing, because that's not a current service delivery function that we provide, right? We rely on the county and the state to do this for our residents. The legislation quite clearly spells out that there's an expectation that we do this thing. We don't have to though, right? We can spend it on other things. So this is an option if we want to do it, right? And my recommendation, I do have it in there, to provide those services for our residents. But this is the one kind of new that we talked about before with the economic development coordinator. That's already built into the budget. This one wasn't, right? This is something new that we would have to make trade-offs in the future if we decide to keep it or just have it as a short-term program. And I'll explain kind of the value of both products. But I wanted to highlight that to keep in the back of your mind that we can do things that are in our current budget. We can also do things that are outside our current service delivery, but ultimately we have to decide kind of what direction we want to head to.
And I've got a question about that. The health and housing,
yeah.
Would that live underneath DSS?
No, it'd be its own. Yeah, putting things under DSS is complex because their administrative component of reimbursements is very complex. So everyone who works in that DSS building, if we put anyone else who's not a DSS person, we get dinged by the state because the state is helping us with the rent for that. they're doing the reimbursements. So it's very, if you're housing anyone in that department, it just complicates the formula for reimbursements. So think of this as kind of a larger health and human services when combined with DSS as well. But it would just be 2 employees is all I'm proposing right now that would report, be part of the city manager office to start with. But actually, because the ASAP has moved out, right? In the interim, we do have that office space with actual customer service capability, where we can have it's 3 personnel there: public health, mental health, and then the housing there to interface with our residents. And why the housing one is important because the state got a ton of money for rent, mortgage, and utility support, not just in ARPA, but remember the Congress passed a bill in December that everyone forgets about. That's what extended the CARES Act. There was a lot of money for that. And they asked all the jurisdictions, hey, do you want to manage this yourself, or can we manage this? We didn't have a housing, so we're like, we can't manage this. You guys have to do it. So everyone except Fairfax County, I believe, decided to just let the state manage those funds. So the state has the money for people who are struggling with this issue. What we need is someone who can get our residents to those resources, the liaison, to walk them through that process, to reach out and be that ambassador for those residents, to kind of tap into all those resources that the state has for housing support.
Kind of like a coordinator.
Correct, absolutely. And also the legislation does talk about affordable housing, right? We don't really have an affordable housing strategy here. Taking advantage of, at least if we're only going to have this position for a few years, at least we can help advise us on those issues as well that we don't have right now. So those are kind of the issues there, and I'll go over those in a later slide as well, kind of what the different components are. But again, that's a new service. We don't have to do that. And I just want to highlight that that doesn't help out our financial position. That simply helps out our service delivery capabilities. And then I took that $54 million. I'm sorry, this is still the capital side. You can see, if you look at the previous slide, our operating is really only around $10 million. And then the capital side is where you spend the majority of the money. And you can see that water, sewer, and stormwater are the biggest pieces. General services, technology, and schools, you'll see that there's one project that's $6 million that I'll go over in the next few slides that takes up the majority of that. But we have kind of CIP elements for all of our different components.
So Laszlo, so your assumption in the health and housing idea is that we need a liaison because people aren't using the services now.
Well, even if they want to, right? Like, you got to put. We talked about before with volunteering for different things. People are very busy. They just don't know how to navigate government, right? And how to find out these resources, how to apply. In with the state's not easy, right? And getting back from the state and understanding. When we had our own program where we were managing benefits for rent and mortgage with DSS, it was very complicated to walk through people through that because we had criteria for how to select. The CARES Act was very strict on that, right? So just to help people to get their application done, a lot of times they didn't get money because it wasn't done properly, and we did our best to kind of help them out, right? So there's a lot more to it than just fill out, sign it here. There's a lot of kind of things you have to fill out in order to get the money.
But we had didn't we have a presentation by the Prince William County's group? It was a good presentation. Yeah, and he mentioned that the dollars that were available for our citizens for housing assistance, I think it was for even for mortgage and for those who are first-time home buyers, weren't utilized to the point that he put them in the general pool for other localities. So, I mean, they're not being used even when we have an organization to serve our citizens.
Well, that's a county organization. That's different. That's why we have like our DSS here. If you put DSS in the county, I'm not sure you're going to get the same service level. So having an office here in our city hall where someone has that question where they can go to, I think just facilitates that process.
Okay.
At least maximizes the chances.
Good point.
We know that people are behind on their rent, they're behind on their mortgage. We don't want to have another housing crisis, and that's one of the biggest reasons why Congress has passed out 3 times money for that issue, but it's being handled at the state level. But again, that's not the most user-friendly way to get money to the people who need it, right? Just like the food delivery. We weren't going to wait on the county. We did it ourselves, and we jumped ahead and got that done.
Good point. I'm just trying to get us that $1.7 million from the Health and Housing
I
Department.
completely understand. Yeah, yeah, and I think that's going to be the big discussion point here is how do we use this money, right? We want to kind of
service those things that the legislation wants us to tackle those issues, or just walk away from those issues and focus on things that we already do.
Yeah.
That's a big question.
Right. It's a good point. Yep.
So the first program, I'm sorry. This what it is, I took that 54 million and just the best I could try to apply it to our different priority categories. It's not always 100% clean. Economic development one is the easiest one because that's an entire ARPA program is economic development. So applying that to our priority of economic development was pretty easy or more difficult, but I did my best to align that in. I did my best to kind of demonstrate how it supports. So the your first priority, of course, is economic development, and as part of the ARPA budget, we have about $3.4 million in eligible expenditures, and we can, in fact, even do more. We did a little bit of job trainings. If you remember, Chris brought the initiative there in partnership with the nonprofit with CARES Act to do some of the job training. We spent some of it, but not a lot, just like Randy's program. So we kind of budgeted kind of an appropriate amount, and if there ends up being more demand, we can always come back and shift some of the money around, but we didn't find as much demand with the job training as we had hoped with CARES Act. Could be different now, so that's something we can always evaluate. Small business supports is doing the grants again like we did with the CARES Act to all of our brick and mortar restaurants and retail to help them with recovery. When you look at kind of BPOL numbers and personal property, that things are looking good for a lot of our businesses, but you look at our meals tax, it's still way down. So our restaurants are still struggling. And that's what I think we really need to focus on, is helping our restaurants to recover. Again, any consulting support, that's all permitted as well. That's part of that. This was the exciting one. When I read this, I couldn't believe that it was a part of it, but there's a category called aid to tourism, travel, or hospitality. Hospitality includes movie theaters and restaurants and those other components of those struggling industries, especially movie theaters, which are one of the biggest hard-hit industries as well. So it doesn't allow you just to kind of provide the grants to those businesses. It allows you to help them with their expansion plans as well, right? Which is very exciting. We have some businesses that were looking to expand into our city and then got hit with COVID-19. We can now help them with whatever is necessary to get that done. That even includes investments in public plaza, which is part of a section on parks and recreation in the FAQ. It surprisingly mentioned investments in your parks, right? And it listed public plazas as well. It's kind of a way to encourage people to get healthy, go out and enjoy parks and other things, basketball courts. Those things are permitted uses with our money. So this is going to be an interesting one here to help maybe help with tenant improvement for some of these restaurants to make it a reality in our downtown. So that's very exciting. And then the economic recovery coordinator, the economic development coordinator to help implement these different programs. And I don't know if we need that full $2.75 million, but I'm putting it there just as a cushion, just like we did last time with the economic development and support for DSS to help with rent and mortgage. We over budgeted, we ended up spending it, we ended up shipping it to things, but we have some exciting things coming up here in the next few years that we may have to use this on to get across the finish line. Or services, so this is kind of the balancing of the pie, right? So we listed for services, pay and FTEs, balancing those different components. So pay is the first one. Again, we already talked about that, the $2.1 million. So we have a total $13 million allocated to this one. Mental health, in terms of supporting, I put mental health here as a core service in terms of supporting law enforcement. There's a couple components for how we want to do mental health. Number one is liaison with the CSB, right, to make sure that our residents who are struggling with mental health issues are getting the services that they need with the CSB. Number two is starting to partner with the police department on a mental health response. So we want to actually potentially utilize this money for mental health response units, one officer, one mental health counselor as well, to deal with a lot of issues that our police encounter that really require more of a mental health services more than law enforcement, or a partnership at least. And then mental health support to our employees. That's something we've talked about the last couple of years, especially after we had that incident in the person committing suicide and how difficult that was for our employees. We asked, can we do this at that time? The answer was no, from a funding standpoint. Now we have an opportunity to actually start tackling that with utilizing ARPA money as well. Law enforcement support, we identified something that's in our budget already. The sex crime detective was slated for FY23, so getting that started sooner rather than later. 2 additional officers, those that we froze, remember, unfreezing
those positions, and that's permitted with ARPA money. The police station HVAC and an additional technology support to our police, $1.4 million. Fire and EMS, this is the easiest one to justify with ARPA money. Anything we do with EMS is just easily accounted for in ARPA. So just like we did with CARES Act, just continuing to buy new life-saving equipment that, again, in the long run, it's items that we would have had to have bought anyways. We can utilize this money for those purposes. That even includes an ambulance. It authorizes, we can buy the ambulance that we have, slated for the future. We can go ahead and buy that as well to make sure that our fire and EMS is able to have their equipment and their vehicles that meet good life cycle standards. Facility renovations are clear cut there for EMS, and then 2 additional EMS employees. I will say with the 2 officers and the 2 EMS employees, we have current grants that we've submitted already for those positions, so we really want to hold off and see are we going to get that money already from the federal government to do that before we consider utilizing this money. But I wanted to keep it there just as an option again for us to consider.
Would this include a ladder truck?
That's what I was going to ask. Good question.
The ladder truck is not necessarily a primary medical response unit. The reason why you would have a ladder truck versus an engine is because you can't access things for fire. Now, you can make the argument that you can go in there for other services as well. So you might be able to justify that with this. So that's something we could put back in there if that's something you would like to put in there. It's going to take a lot of the money, but if that's an option you guys want, I think I can. We had a difficult time because, again, with the main purpose of the ladder truck, we didn't want to run into issues with the federal government in terms of what's the main purpose of the ladder truck versus an ambulance. That is clear cut. It's directly for rescuing people who may be struggling with COVID-19, which we've been doing. So we can put it there, but it comes with risks.
Now let's stay away
If we hear other jurisdictions doing it, maybe we can have that. That's what we also want to listen. That's why you see my plans, my recommended budget. We're not spending a lot of money year one, right? I want to see what other jurisdictions are doing and get different ideas from them as well.
Well, at least we'll be in a better financial position to be able to buy that ladder
You're
truck.
absolutely right.
So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's stay out of the gray area.
Yeah.
The facility for community development, general services, and schools is what we talked about before, acquiring a building for our public works. Again, there's a share of this that would come from water and sewer and stormwater, since we have employees who are doing that work who require the facility. There's a share from the lost revenues, right? The $11 million that I applied to this as well, because I can't justify it. Like the general fund, our streets crew, I'm not going to justify using ARPA money for that. But again, we have that $11 million of lost revenue, which you can spend on those things, right? So that's a piece of this. And then it talks about education a lot in the legislation. It's mainly focused on early education, but they do have categories of just kind of general education as well. And they also have job training, and that's where when we think about, remember the plan or the request from the schools is to be able to move out their transportation, or at least it was before, their transportation and their facility teams from the high school buildings that they have right now, getting a building for them. So I proposed before, well, let's move them to that same building, right? And then what do we do with those spaces there, right? I've been hearing a lot from your interviews that we want to do a little bit more with Voc Tech, right, and technical training. Maybe those are the facilities that are best suited for that, and we can use some of this to do some of those renovations as well to help our schools out with that process. We have that opportunity with this money to do that. Yeah.
Did you say the education was there was some funding that was not totally designated? Did you say it was general? I didn't quite hear what you said.
No, I said it talks more about early education than general, like K through 12.
Okay.
There's another funding pool, and you see that my last bullet there. The schools, in addition to this $21 million, the schools receive their own ARPA money, and that's clearly for K through 12, right? They got $2.5 million, right?
Yeah.
So with our ARPA money, it talks a lot more about early education. So you can see we put in there for a preschool teacher for our Parks and Rec to be able to provide those services in part of our community center as well.
The reason I asked, I was wondering if the education piece could help with staff development costs.
What do you mean, for teachers or?
No, for city employees.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So
Or
job
is it-
training for
tuition.
Yeah.
I didn't see that. Where I think it can be
staff development, I guess, is,
Yeah, I think if it's staff development towards responding to the pandemic or towards economic recovery, I think that's where you can justify that. So any training
for your mental health person or for your health care. I think that's easier to justify.
Okay.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry, you're
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think for me or for finance I don't think, unless it's directly related to ARPA legislation, I don't think that would be permitted.
But training for fire and rescue?
I think that would,
Yeah, okay,
I could
okay.
certainly see that as being an option as well, yeah.
Okay.
Another question about the HVAC at the police station, which I think is needed. But wasn't there also an issue about the roof at the police station? I know we had a temporary patch and the water that was going down in the electrical system.
That's part of our budget, our existing budget, and HVAC is, so if this was a fire station, I would say yes, there's EMS employees in there, we can do the roof. For police, the reason why we call out HVAC for both the police station and you'll see later the community center, is that has to do with ventilation, which is directly called out there, that you can take actions to improve ventilation in your facilities, and that's where we're coming up with the HVAC. Not to say we can't use this money for a police roof, it's just, again, that's one of those gray areas that we weren't 100% confident in.
Okay.
Again, but we're not spending all the money year one, and if we hear other people doing that and they have a justification, the treasurer's okayed it, then that becomes an option. Yeah. But to the mayor's earlier point, by doing some of these other projects that we also have in our budget, it does free up money, then city money, to tackle some of these other things as well. That we know are, that if it's our money, then of course we can do that. Where if it's ARPA money, it may be a greater. Yeah, and so I already provided that reminder. The schools are getting $2.5 million. You can see that's pretty well in line with kind of what we're doing with our fire and EMS and our law enforcement as well. So everyone's kind of getting a good amount of funding here as well. So this isn't 100% community maintenance, but this was probably the best area where I could put these categories. It was either here or service delivery, because there could be a positive benefit towards community maintenance. So with the public health and the city planning policy support element, right? Even though our priority mission is going to be COVID-19 response, they can help out our community maintenance teams in terms of life safety issues, right? In terms of unsafe things in homes, just employing kind of those health departmental resources more on a daily basis to partner with Calvin's department on any support they need as they go out to do their mission. But that's not the primary purpose for why we're doing this. It's just this was probably one area where it can help community maintenance. But of course, public health and city planning policy support, that's emergency management planning and policy support. That's to directly respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. We've had our assistant city manager of operations doing this instead of doing his day-to-day job. That's taken up plenty of time. This focuses the staff on working on that, and then the public health as well, another liaison with county and state health resources for our residents as well.
So these are FTEs?
2, yeah.
Okay. It was hard to make that out from just reading that.
Sorry, yeah.
Okay.
Housing support, same thing. This is an FTE as well to help out. There are additional resources that we're putting in the budget for support with rent and mortgage, utilities, internet access. There is money in there. Our hope again is to use state revenues for that purpose, because there's already money out there. So helping our residents first apply there. And for whatever reason, if it's not working out with the state, we have some money in our budget as well to help them out with that. That's kind of how we've structured our housing support. And again, this one is clear cut in how it can help community maintenance with home repair support, right? We had the presentation a few weeks ago from the county housing department on the potential for helping people access money to repair their homes. And we have homes that can certainly use that. So we can help identify those resources and reach out to those residents and maybe help them out with housing professionals. Infrastructure, this one's easy. This is going to be all of our water, sewer, stormwater projects, but you also see on the bottom below there our Parks and Rec, because they lumped that in there, even though it wasn't called out in the water and sewer component. It was kind of part of a health initiative to get people outdoors and enjoying the parks again. That was called out in terms of their infrastructure, and you can see all these projects listed in water and sewer and stormwater. These are things that we've already identified in the CIP, except for that the Railroad Drive culverts rehabilitation. That is a newer project. And just for situational awareness, we are developing slides for each of these projects, and that's why we put the 27th as an option. If you wanted to go over every single project and have the directors brief you on each of those components, we can do that. Or you can just send us your questions, however you guys want to manage the process. I've done my best to kind of summarize it in this presentation, but if you want to go into further details, we can provide you the slide deck if you just want to read that, however you guys want to tackle that. But we are developing that. I hope to wrap that up by the end of this week or early next week and have a slide that has the description of the project, the amounts, the timeline, justification, and also the ARPA regulation reference. What page does it talk in quotes saying, we can do this thing as well. Financial management, this is going to be the compliance ARPA budget management position that we talked about at the last meeting to get approval to start advertising for helping to manage all of this, the reporting requirements, the regulations, tracking every single dollar, audit purposes, to help out the finance team with those purposes, and then the logistics and procurement component. We're going to be doing a lot of contracts here. We're going to be driving Dean crazy, just like with CARES Act. So this is CARES Act times, 7 or 5. So we want to get him some procurement support as well to make sure contracts are already good in place, that we're sourcing vendors, maximizing prices, right? Before we, again, maximize every single dollar as well. So these would be 2 positions under that rubric. And then IT stuff, so ERP. We've been talking about it for the longest time. A lot of our issues for why people have to come into City Hall to do their payments is because of our ERP, right? That's one of the biggest things that sets us back, and we're going to do a lot with this ARPA money in terms of getting the new ERP, investments in cybersecurity and other software and hardware. So just like in CARES Act, we had the extra IT staff support. We want to do that again with all these different IT initiatives that we'll be handling with this, but that will help us out with our financial management. And the logistics procurement position, that is already in our existing budget as well in a latter year. The compliance position is not, so that one would be a temporary position that would go in at the end of ARPA. Whereas the logistics procurement one, we have the option because it's already in the budget in the future year. It's called general services. It's already built into the budget, so we can just walk into that.
So if it's not already in the budget, the position will sunset when the ARPA money sunsets.
Correct. The question would be mental health. Do we want to continue doing that? There's going to be things that we can evaluate to see whether we want to take on these additional scope of work in the future or not.
There are a lot of positions, FTEs, that are scattered throughout your presentation.
I'm going to do a slide that summarizes.
What would be helpful for me is to see a slide of just FTE, sure, and those that will be funded just during the ARPA funding of 2024, and those that will continue on in our base, as it were, permanently going forward. That'd be helpful.
I will absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
And some of them, again, like the counselor, the mental health stuff, those are things that police and I have been talking about the last few months. They didn't get on our last budget, but that's kind of the trend, the national trend that we're starting to see is to build up to that. So it was probably going to end up being as part of our FY23 budget presentation anyway. So even though it's not our current budget model, we were going to bring back kind of the mental health component as part of the FY23 budget. And we were hoping to try to target federal grants for that purpose as well. All right, so service delivery, keeping our employees secure. This is what we did with CARES Act, a lot of PPE cleaning. Not so much this time with PPE. I think we have a good stock of PPE still. We're not going to have to invest as much as we did with CARES Act to build up that stock, so we feel comfortable with that. Cleaning, just more active deep cleaning as well to help mitigate spread.
What's the shelf life on the PPE? Most of it?
It varies, but it's going to be a few years. So the plan is right now is we'll look at it in again 2024 and see kind of what's closer to expiring and kind of replace those items. And so at this point, really, it's our fire and EMS that really need the majority of the PPE support. Vaccination support program for our residents, what we've done and what we still want to continue doing. And then again, just additional IT capital initiatives that don't necessarily support our financial position, but again, help us to digitize our customer service capabilities, our workforce capabilities, in case, again, we have to shut down and encourage more remote work, and also servicing our residents via digital capacity, cybersecurity, they call that out as well, making sure that all this technology that you're doing is safe and secure. The public meeting broadcasting system, the system's old and failing.
it's been a huge headache in order for us to continue to engage with our residents and push out our messaging. We recommend using this funding to buy a new system that works.
As a part of the IT stuff, I recall that there was some discussion about providing laptops or tablets to the governing body members who wanted one.
Yeah.
You know, whatever their preference might be.
And we can still do that. If you all let me know. And
I mean, I don't need one, but others
shoot me an email
may.
if you want one. And,
others may wish to take advantage of that. Yeah.
Okay, and I'll get that over to Donna. We can go ahead and do that.
I think that's a good idea for everyone to consider, especially because of FOIA laws. You know, you don't want them to come in and take your
own personal, yeah. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, and I like to keep things separate. You know.
They should be. It's a good thing. Good practice.
Do you want to use ARPA money for that or city funding?
Well, whatever you recommend.
Sure. And then
it just seemed like a golden opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with that. Direct services to residents. Randy could talk about this one next week. Mental health screenings for foster youth, substance use services for Randy's department, food support. We wouldn't want to manage our own food program again, but continue the donations to ACTS, who's doing the work for us on that angle. Rent, mortgage support, utilities, internet access support. Those things are all called out, including burial support for families if the relative, our resident of our city, passed away to COVID-19. And they're struggling with funding, and that was something that Randy did get a call on, or social services did get called on for support for that very effort. So we did put some money for that if that continues to be an issue that our residents are facing.
Leslie, when you mean public Wi-Fi, that means throughout the city, or just like at our plaza, or where do you?
Just our plaza for now.
Okay.
You'll see as part of the infrastructure when we talked about SCADA, if we can do that with dark fiber, right, like getting the actual fiber connection, it was if we have enough money for that, right, if we decide we want to do that, we can look to partner with private vendors or others to then either do or just do it ourselves to set up a citywide public Wi-Fi network. That's going to be very expensive, but it's something we could do. Right, so we have the dark fiber project in the full list, but we didn't add that public Wi-Fi component, but it is on Don's radar. Again, so there are some things that aren't on this, right? But it's because it's something that we haven't looked into before, but it's something that Don and I were sitting down talking about just a couple of weeks ago. If we're going to do the dark fiber project, can we take advantage of that and try to set up a citywide public Wi-Fi?
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question back to the Wi-Fi. If we're just going to do it in the downtown right now, what about doing it at the community center?
We have.
Do you have it there?
Yeah. I don't know how strong it is. We bumped it up. We strengthened it during CARES Act. We used CARES Act money to strengthen it at our community center because we were going to do the child care program there. So I'll have to get back with Jay and Don to see if they had to revert or did they keep the same kind of Wi-Fi strength.
Because I'm thinking, heaven forbid, we actually have to go back where children aren't in school anymore. At least they could go there if it's open to do schoolwork.
Yeah, and that was an initiative we evaluated at that time, and we only had like 2 residents who applied for it, so we stopped. But we were getting calls from residents, but then only two ended up applying.
Yeah, thank you.
So that's a sizable budget there, and there's even things that aren't in here that certainly we can evaluate, like the citywide public Wi-Fi, and that just again adds to the total expenditure. So what I did is I took the current list of projects, and to help you out, I showed you a balanced budget with that. You don't have to go with my budget, but I just wanted to help you out with balancing that 54 million down to 21 million. How it can be done, and it involves some choices. We want to do everything, right? We want to get all this $54 million worth of items done, but we can't. We have to balance the budget of what we have. So the kind of the framework of priorities that I thought we really needed to tackle was those bullets 1, 2, 3. That's what the legislation wanted us to do, right? Keep dealing with COVID, keep dealing with public health, mental health, additional law enforcement support, helping our economy recover, and helping our households who could be struggling as a result of COVID. That's clear cut. That's what the legislation wanted us to do with this money, and that's kind of where we put a significant amount of money behind those efforts. Pay increases, we already talked about that. That's program number, or category 2 from that earlier slides. Category 1 is those items 1 through 3. Category 2 was the pay raises. We already talked about that one. I think that this is a golden opportunity to help out our employees. Our infrastructure, our IT backbone, that's kind of the next item that I think we need to tackle here. And the real important ones for connectivity and helping out with finances and everything else are those smart meters. Our meters are older. They don't work well with our billing system. Now is a perfect time to actually go to smart meters. Just intelligent meters that will tell you on a regular basis what your water usage is. Will tell us what people's water usage is. Will help us with accurate billing, identifying where all of our meters are. That is such an important project that we don't have right now, and has potential to generate additional revenues for meters that are defunct right now that don't even know that as well. SCADA as well. It's the ability to monitor and manage all of our water and sewer infrastructure with this, right? That helps out big time for our public works team. Not having to wait for an alarm and the neighbors to have to call us to let us know when something is an alarm is going off, right? And just being able to track in real time what's happening with our infrastructure. That's what the SCADA project's for. Design engineering for Rsvp Branch. That's the biggest stormwater project we have. We know we want to submit for future earmarks. We got my email, I think a couple days ago, that our project for security is moving forward. From both of our U.S. senators actually moved that project forward, so that's very exciting. We'll find out in the fall whether we get the money or not. Rsvp Branch is a perfect opportunity for either earmark or additional existing grants for this kind of work, right? But your grants, your applications for everything are more competitive when you've already done a lot of engineering behind it. Because there's a lot of questions that go into grant applications that you can't answer until you do some of this stuff. So I recommend using this money to fully understand the whole component of what's involved with Rsvp Branch, or to support a public-private partnership opportunity, which we hope to be able to brief to you all here in the next month or so. So more on that with Rsvp Branch. And of course, we talked about IT modernization and public Wi-Fi, and that can expand beyond the plaza if that's something we want to do. This just has the budget for it in our plaza. Hiring necessary implementations, kind of the overhead, keeping that under 5%, which is pretty low of the budget. And then those facility enhancements that we talked about, the fire station ones, which are not in any gray zone. They're pretty obvious with the legislation. And then that community development building and any school renovations that we want to do to help out our school system. Cut that budget in half to balance the budget, but it's at least a start. We know we're going to get more money from proffers for the next few years from the downtown stuff, so we can partner the two to make sure that we have enough for those initiatives. So that gets us down to $21.8 million, which is a surplus of $35,000 when factoring in the interest rate. So those are kind of the framework that I established there with the balanced budget, and this is what it looks like by department, just like we had before. But you can see we spend it down. We get all of it by year 2, and then we just start spending it down until we get to a surplus of $35,000 in the cushion for the interest rate, right? So we don't go above that. But you can see not a lot of spending year 1, and then we really ramp it up in the middle of this as we learn from what other jurisdictions doing. Do we want to revise this or not? If you have a question,
how long do you plan to have that $11 million in the loss fund or reserve and the interest-bearing account?
Oh yeah, so we'll have the 10.8 million. We're only going to spend 3.7 million of it in FY, or at least per this proposal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that means you have $7 million invested, right?
Mm-hmm.
To generate some additional interest revenue, and then at the end of year 2, you have $11 million. So these first 2 years, we should be able to generate a significant amount of interest rate revenue. Does that answer your question?
Okay, I see it. And my second question is, if every locality is getting these funds and spending on similar items because of the targets or because of the requirements, you're going to have a rise of these costs, inflation, which happens, demand. So we've got to factor that in as well as the increase of construction costs or costs for these services.
Right. That's why we're going to have to constantly revisit this, just like we did with CARES Act. So we had like 6 months to spend CARES Act, and we looked at it, I think, like 3 different times, and we modified the budget.
This time we have a little bit more time, but we do need to revisit this as we actually go out and source vendors and bring back contracts to you. We're gonna have to see, well, we went over budget here or under budget, and then make decisions based off that.
Are we already seeing an increase of costs for our construction services and not yet?
You seen it yet for?
Okay.
Not yet.
Thanks.
I hear from the developers in terms of the development community.
Right.
And what we have seen though is definitely a delay in procurement, like our HVAC system at the fire station. Probably took 6 months longer than it should have because of delays in manufacturing and everything else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is what the capital looks like, so you can see a lot scaled back. And I just want to highlight the kind of 2 areas that I really focused on to kind of achieve balance. These were, you know, this core services was $13 million before. I brought that down to $8 million. Infrastructure was like at $34 million, brought it down to $4 million. So it's a little bit more balanced across all of these categories with the balanced budget. What I showed you is what I had to cut to get there, just to show that this is a difficult exercise, right? We have a list of things. To balance it, we have to identify what are those things to cut. The 2 officers, the 2 EMS employees, again, we want to pursue the grant route. We want to keep pursuing those federal grants that we know other jurisdictions are getting these positions funded that way. So instead of using ARPA money, I want to continue to pursue that route.
But the backup is if the grants don't come to fruition, then we could lean on to the ARPA money.
We could, but we'd have to cut something else.
Okay.
Remember, this is a balanced budget as is. So anything that is red here that we would then want to do later,
we got to trade off
something else. Yeah. And then again, like I said, I cut the community development building school renovation project in half as well. That was a large ticket item. And then you can see all the stuff from water and sewer to stormwater. Again, I want to pursue grants for these things. State, I think the state is going to fund a lot with their $4.4 billion in ARPA. You can try to get these things knocked out via this process, right? And that's what the finance and logistics person also can help us out with, is those additional state ARPA revenues as well. You guys don't have to do this. This is just my recommendation. I think it's going to be easier for me to get this from the state than it may be some of the other things. That's why I'm trying to be strategic as well.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said. Easier for you to what?
To get additional money from the state to tackle these projects than some of the other projects.
The ones that are lined out. Okay.
No, that aren't lined out.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, this is a way to balance it. Again, the infrastructure was the biggest component. So if you want to keep all the infrastructure, we can. It's $34 million. So if all you want to do is infrastructure, you don't have enough money to do that. But that doesn't mean we're not going to aggressively pursue additional state and federal revenues that ARPA has provided, and the future infrastructure bill as well. I'm going to open up the spreadsheets now. We posted these online. The first one's kind of the full menu, the $54 million.
The 54 is confusing. That's just the dream budget. If we fund everything.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, that could be.
Remember that slide where I said it's to give you guys options and something to fall back on, right? But that's why I'm presenting a balanced budget to make this easier. But that's my balanced budget. You guys have to kind of pick what you want to do. But I'm showing a way to balance the budget if you want to do that. And so this looks like our regular budget where I have the budget overview tab, right? And here I have comments describing what's going on with each of these items, right? Just like I showed on the slide. So you can start thinking about what you'd want to remove from these items. If you want to remove them, go to the line item tab. It starts with revenue. The key with this one is we have the ARPA regulation references. If you want to take a look at that and see kind of what the language states. And this again helps us out with future audits, right? To kind of justify why we took the actions that we did. And the background documentation internally is a lot more comprehensive as well for future auditors. But this lays out everything per the departmental categories. And you can see we use these EC 1.5. That's the handout that I provided you. Those are the federal expenditure categories. So we can line this up with our reporting as well.
Thank you for doing that.
And it shows each item. So the economic development coordinator, if you want to see what that costs us over 4 years, that's this. But I'll put that on one slide to kind of summarize every single FTE, just to make it easier.
Please.
But this has everything that I talked about and more. Every single position, FICA, everything that we're talking about doing, technology components, it's in the line item tab if you want to take a look at that.
CIP does the same thing from a capital standpoint. It lists every single project that's on this $54 million budget and what the current price tag that we believe is part of that as well.
Great.
And it has the ARPA regulation reference as well. Then this takes that money and just applies it to your priorities: economic development, core services. So you can see it's the same information, but it combines operating and capital into one spreadsheet aligned to your priorities.
Okay.
And then we have the different view, which is by expense category for reporting. And we have the reference for if you want to read on additions as well. And we subtotal each category to show you kind of what we're spending on each of the categories that the federal government has laid out for us. That's the menu of options. That's $54 million. This is the one. You can either start with this one or compare this one to mine and add and remove from mine, however you want to do it. But the math has to work out. Mine looks exactly the same, but it's balanced. $21 million. So we're missing a lot of CIP projects that were on the previous spreadsheet. So look at these, look at those, see what you want to put back in, and see what you want to remove, play around with it, or send me kind of suggestions for what you want to see, and we can have further discussions. But this one looks exactly like the other one, except that it's a balanced budget. That's the only difference. Is there any questions on these spreadsheets before I go back to the presentation?
Yeah, where's our debt? In particular, the new lease we're gonna have to pay for.
Which lease?
I mean, for the downtown development when we start
This is the
paying
ARPA
that.
budget. This isn't the city budget.
Okay.
That's not going to be on here. But if you look at the FY22 budget, go to the CIP tab. It's in the facility section. I think it's the last project in this, or one of the last few projects. It's called the capital lease for New City Hall.
Okay. And it begins in what, 2025 we start paying?
Or 25, around there. Yeah, it starts with a small payment and then kind of escalates.
It's 24.
But it is in the CIP.
Because that's how we did it with VRE and with the ARPA funds. We took our debt in consideration, so we started kind of lost or putting a reserve for our ARPA money just in case to repay that.
Can't use this money to pay debt.
No, you can't. But we just said it's because of loss or something. Very similar to what you said.
You have to be careful with that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah.
You're now on tape saying that.
Yeah. Congress really didn't want people using this for debt or pensions, and it's kind of a political debate. Their tax cuts.
That's good.
Yeah.
They want spending this money on new initiatives to get the economy
on
going.
inflation.
Yeah. Okay, so that is the spreadsheet. Please send me any questions you have if you have any questions on that spreadsheet. And then again, please review all these files. We're going to send you that project PowerPoint that will have every single project, and I'll do a summary of the FTEs there as well. Take a look at that and then let me know how you want to proceed with the further review process. Looking for your guidance and your recommendations on the how to modify the spreadsheets. Okay. And then we can vote August 3rd, September 7th, even later if you want. It's up to you guys about when you want us to start spending this money. We theoretically already spent some of this money, so if you're going to take a long time in approving the budget, we're going to come back via motion to utilize some of this money, like for our vaccination. We already spent a lot of money on vaccination, so we want to cover that. And before we close the FY21 budget, we want to shift from our city GL codes now to ARPA codes to move that money around in the FY21 budget before we close on August 30th, the FY21 budget. So so feel free to take your time, but just know that we will bring back agenda items on August 3rd for items that we need to move on for FY21.
So if the governing body were to decide to meet next Tuesday, what would the content of the meeting be?
We would go just like we do with the CIP, where we go over every slide of project. We would do the same thing for this.
Okay, I would make a recommendation to the governing body that it might be good for the public to look at the deliberation that we might go through. So consider that when you make your decision. Yes.
I had a question on the decision. What's on the agenda for August 3rd? Because we know that that's the meeting that we have scheduled. Is that a packed meeting?
As of right now, it's not. We plan on bringing the ERP consulting contract for your consideration. I'll bring back probably some agenda items by motion if this doesn't get ratified that night.
to at least get your approval to start making some adjustments in our budget to move around.
Does it have to be ratified that night?
It does not, no.
Okay.
No. But again, if it doesn't, then I have these, I'm gonna put some other agenda items there after this. If this gets approved, we can ignore those agenda items because they'll already be part of this. But we're gonna be requesting certain things to start.
Because I think it's helpful for the public to see us talk about this and to see what we can spend it on, what we can't. And when we meet in open session, it's taped, it's on the YouTube for the public to watch anytime they want to. Just a suggestion.
I also feel this is not something we want to rush through.
Right.
And that's my concern of making decision on August 3rd. We're rushing through it.
Okay. So maybe we have the public hearing on August 3rd and then vote on it on September 7th.
Well, I guess if you want to do public hearing, I don't think it's required for this. When I amend the budget in the fall,
Yes.
FY22 budget, to incorporate all these line items, we're definitely going to do a public hearing because now we're increasing the budget beyond the threshold.
I was just saying a public hearing just to get people involved, but we don't have, you're right, we don't have to have a public hearing.
But we can, we can certainly solicit people to please send us your comments and just put this more on social media that we have this this project. And again, when you guys vote on this, just for clear, like, the governing body voted on the CARES Act, I think multiple times, like the budget, we made a lot of modifications. So once you vote on it, it's not set in stone. Remember, again, I'm only proposing $3 million year one, right? That doesn't bind us to the future. That's just your initial guidance. Think of it that way. Your actual actions are when we amend the budget, the FY22 budget, and then when you adopt the FY23 budget, the FY24, that's where we start creating kind of the incorporating it into our budget and our appropriations. And you'll vote on the quarterly appropriations as well. So you'll have plenty of time and plenty of cracks in this because when we present the budget amendment in December, we may already have modifications that we'll bring back to you to recommend. Certainly when we present the FY23 budget, we're going to have more modifications to this as well that we're going to recommend. So just bear with us. We're going to constantly have changes that we're going to bring back because of pricing and everything else.
Definitely need to take our time.
And you're also going to look at as time goes on, the best practices of other jurisdictions. Yeah.
So what does the governing body want to do about next Tuesday?
I'd rather just read the PDF. I'd rather read the PowerPoint on my own.
I couldn't hear you.
Rather read the PowerPoint.
Okay.
Rather than us come in here and have the staff give the presentation.
Okay.
Just read it and then
Right.
Send questions.
Right. Providing that, make sure that PowerPoint is meaty enough.
Yeah.
That it
will that PowerPoint be then presented to the public on the 3rd?
It wouldn't be presented. I mean, we'll post it. It'll be available for people to read. But from my understanding is what you're looking for is you would read it. We meet on August 3rd, then you start asking questions about specific versus us presenting every single slide, all the details, right?
Yeah. Like that, the Olympics are on, so
Along with, Councilmember Moore's suggestion for the FTEs to be broken down, that was a good suggestion.
Yes.
So we, yeah, what he said, right? So we do not meet Tuesday. Is that what I'm hearing? Is that
correct?
Right. We can just read the slides.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll try to get that to you all. So I have the department submitting it to me on Friday, and I'll look it over and make additional modifications and hopefully get it to you over the weekend.
Sounds great.
So according to the meeting schedule, and I don't have it right in front of me, we meet August 3rd, and then when is the next meeting after that?
September 7th.
September 7th, okay. And there's nothing in between, okay.
Not right now.
Okay, unless there's an emergency, okay. Okay. Well, that should give us plenty of think time. Okay.
Is there going to be a manager's report? Just curious.
I'm sorry.
If not, I had a question for the city manager if he was going to do a report.
Yeah.
Is it possible we can get an analysis or a debriefing on the July 4th activities? Because I heard there was some concern about the food trucks that did show up or didn't show up. How many people showed up to the event? How successful was it? I'd just like to have a
we can do that.
Briefing on the July 4th.
We met as a staff the week after, and we talked about all those issues as well, so we can do that. The food trucks we had food trucks, and they backed out the day of because they just didn't think enough people were going to show up.
That's wild.
Yeah, so.
But the one that came did really well.
I bet they.
There you go.
Exactly.
We felt our residents paying on that one. But there's certain things we're going to do to improve it next year as well, especially with the other field that just wasn't utilized, even though it was available. Where we talked about all those things as well.
The fire show was amazing. The fireworks show was amazing. Really good.
It was a lot of fun.
If we're gonna bring back that information, could we also find out, or could you let us know how you get the vendors so that we have more variety for the next one? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We can do that. And it is on Caitlin's, and she's going to take the lead on that next year.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Great.
she's going to focus, because that was the main weak point. Also the sound system, the speakers didn't arrive. We didn't have enough of them. We also should have we had planned for another area to be more utilized than it was, so it really should have been directed in other places. So we did the full kind of after action review with all the departments, identified all the issues.
It was still nice though.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was still good.
I could actually see some of it from my house. Yeah.
We had some of the legal ones happening.
A lot of those. A few landed in my yard.
Okay, 9G, Prince William County Housing Department Agreement Ratification. Is that you, Laszlo? Are you?
Oh, no, that's not me.
Okay, who is it?
You guys already kind of approved it, so it's just ratification.
The,
Oh, yeah, we did.
Yeah.
That's
we
what
had
you
the
signed?
presentation, but we didn't.
No, you guys had the whole contract was emailed to you all a few weeks ago. I haven't looked it over in a while, so I don't remember the full
Okay,
contents
well-
of it. But you all,
Dean sent me a motion.
Yeah. You need to approve what was the HUD agreement that was.
Right.
It was signed.
But we just had the presentation. We didn't.
Yeah, you had the housing presentation, right?
Right,
But the
right.
HUD agreement was sent separately.
Yeah,
Right.
we signed it
You signed
originally,
it.
and then we had the presentation.
Okay, then what is this?
You signed it separately after that, right? It had to be ratified.
That came after the presentation.
yeah, but I think that's a different thing. That's their agreement with HUD, right?
Is our agreement with Prince William County.
So they can do their agreement
So they
with
can
HUD.
do their HUD thing, and they needed it by the 15th,
Uh-huh.
and that's why it was signed. So you need to ratify Laszlo's signature on that
This is
agreement.
the ratification.
Pardon me?
This is the ratification.
Yes, that's the
Okay.
ratification.
Okay. So does anyone want to say a few words as like a refresher?
Beyond what I just said, I mean, it's so Prince William County gets the funds, and then we're included in there. And if you remember when they made the presentation, we actually get more funds than we otherwise would have if we were by ourselves. So it's to our benefit to be a part of this regional group. But the agreement that allows us to do that is what Laszlo had to sign so that they could go ahead and have it in time. So all we're doing is just asking you to ratify that agreement, because it, even though he signed it, it's not official until the governing body has approved it.
Okay, so are we all clear on what we're doing? Yeah. Okay. The motion is that the governing body ratify the city manager's approval and execution of the HUD cooperation agreement with Prince William County for the Community Development Block Grant, Home Investment Partnership Program, and Emergency Solutions Grant for FFY 2022, FFY 2023, and FFY 2024 as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks.
And manager's report, or?
Nothing further to report.
Okay, you're done for, right? Yeah. Okay. And there's no closed meeting, so,
Madam Mayor, I got something.
Yes,
Well,
go ahead.
Today I received an email from the Prince William Arts Council. If you remember, we had a representative from Manassas Park on that council a few years ago, and I think that person moved. And so there's vacancies, at least 3, for Manassas Park citizens or for any of us who want to serve on this Arts Council. And I will send you the email that I just got informed about it today, to let you know more about this council. And
Where did that come from?
it came from one of the board members and also their assistant,
Okay. Which board member?
Alice Mergler. She was my former English teacher in high school.
No, which board member?
Alice Mergler.
Oh, I thought you meant Board of County Supervisors.
No.
Sorry. Sorry.
Arts Council board
Okay,
member.
okay.
Yeah. So, I'll email it to you all.
Okay. Maybe somebody would like to.
But they meet once a month on the second Tuesday at 6:30 p.m.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. You're welcome.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in
Can you,
favor?
Mayor, can you hold on for 1 second? We need to confirm one thing real quick
Okay,
here.
sorry. Yeah.
So Laszlo pulled up the agreement, the HUD agreement, and it has the mayor's signature block. Did you actually sign it? I mean, I don't know, do we have the version that was signed included in the packet?
Did I sign it, Lena?
Yes.
Okay, so we need to go back and change that.
Okay. Okay, do you want to state okay, how do we go about changing this legally?
Well, I guess we have a motion to reconsider the approval for the previous approval, and it was unanimous, so any one of you could make a motion to reconsider. That needs to be voted on, and then we'll go ahead and have the vote again,
Okay,
separate.
does somebody want to
Make a motion to reconsider the ratification of the HUD agreement with Prince William County.
Did you second it? Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries.
So now it would be the same motion you had before, except where it says city manager, it just changed to mayor.
Okay, to ratify. Okay, the governing body ratified the mayor's, well, no, because I didn't approve and execute.
Well, you did. By signing it, you approved it and executed it.
Because
If you
the
signed
governing
it.
body approved it.
Right, that's, the governing body is ratifying your approval and signature.
Okay, all right, I see. That the governing body ratify the mayor's approval and execution of the HUD cooperation agreement with Prince William County for the Community Development Block Grant Home Investment Partnership Program and Emergency Solutions Grant for FFY 2022, FFY 2023, and FFY 2024 as presented.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thanks for picking up on that, Dean.
Laszlo picked up on it. He's like,
thank you,
realized
Laszlo.
that he didn't sign it, so.
And now we have to re-vote on closing the meeting.
I'm sorry?
We have to re-vote on closing the meeting.
Did you actually vote on it, or was a motion
No, we
and
got
a
to
second?
We got to second.
We got we got as far as the second.
Okay, well, technically, we probably should have backed out of that one. Technically, we should have backed out of that, so we now have a main motion still sitting on the,
Okay.
sitting
So
out there.
Just go
so-
ahead and vote?
Yeah, I mean.
Okay, let's vote. All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you so much, everybody.
Parliamentary rules.